What's Pro Football Focus doing? Last week they had Brady. This week they got Brady.
We're literally doing it differently from everybody else.
As a matter of fact, moving forward from this point on, I will not make reference to PFF.
Ready to get into it?
Yeah.
All right. We're going team by team.
I would be very careful about slinging stones.
Am I going to get sued?
Is that legal on this?
I like football season, and all the things that go with it.
Welcome into the PFF NFL podcast. Steve Palazzolo, Sam Monson. We're live on YouTube, and we're going through every game here in Week 15. I lied last week, Sam. I said it was a full slate, 16 games. Again, I forgot that the Cardinals and Commanders were off, but from here on out, the buys are done. You and I got to do all the work here.
Just an endless stream of misinformation coming from you this year.
Oh, yeah. Look, my game picks have been far better than last year.
That's true.
But I've lied a lot.
Yeah.
I've been wrong about a lot of stuff. So we'll get right into it, right? We got a lot of games to get through, and we'll do the Discord game of the week. We'll do the best games of the week, but we're going to start with Thursday Night Football. Los Angeles Chargers at the Las Vegas Raiders. Raiders are favored by 3 here on Thursday Night Football. We have Easton Stick starting at QB for the Los Angeles Chargers. Aiden O'Connell, of course, still going for the Raiders, and Keenan Allen is out for the Chargers, throwing another wrench in the Chargers' plans because, he's been the only dependable receiver this year.
Yeah, that's pretty rough for Easton Stick, or, give him his full name, Easton Yellow Synergy Senior Hockey Stick, the 60th.
I pinged Pro Football Reference yesterday.
Oh, is that now added as a
with
nickname?
Your tweet. So I said, please advise and make sure that gets added as a nickname.
Yeah,
at least.
Absolutely. I mean, look, it's no worse than some of the other nicknames that are up there that have never been attributed to anybody in the history of the world.
There are some fun ones. Like, I've never heard this one.
Right.
Are you... is there a nice acronym to that? What would Austin Gale do with that?
Oh, yeah, he would definitely acronyminize it. EYSSHS. So not really.
Yish.
Yeah, it's not a great one.
Anyway, Easton Stick getting his first NFL start here. Mobile quarterback out of North Dakota State.
Yeah, with no wide receivers to speak of. It's pretty rough going.
Well, I'm going to watch it. I'm going to grind it out. Is there something to watch as far as players? I'm always looking at the young players. They're going to be a part of the rebuild, of course, for each team. We got a little bit of life from Tyree Wilson last week.
Yeah,
from the Raiders. Maybe his best game as a pass rusher.
In a 3-0 encounter.
Yes.
Max Crosby looked relatively back. I mean, we talked sort of that week heading into the show, right? Heading into the weekend that he had been dealing with this knee injury. We showed a picture of his knee having swelled up to the size of Nebraska. Like the swelling was the thing that was potentially keeping him from being himself. But he had 8 pressures in that game against the Vikings. And it maybe didn't quite look like Max Crosby. Had a couple of sacks there, but looked pretty close. I mean, looked better than he did the first game he was battling through that knee injury. So Max Crosby is always a pretty good reason to watch the Raiders play. And sure, yeah, I mean, if Tyree Wilson is starting to show some signs of life, that would be encouraging too.
Well, he has a 44 grade this year, but
that's not great.
It's not good. But again, if you're a Raiders fan and you're looking for, eyes to the future, seeing if those guys can get involved, some injuries up front to the Raiders' offensive line. Dylan Parham will move from guard to center with Andre James out, so just something else to keep an eye on there. Aiden O'Connell at this point, 57.8 grade from him. It's really, he had a great game a few weeks ago against the Chiefs. It's really just been an up and down performance from O'Connell so far.
Yeah, I mean, wildly inconsistent for him. Like he had that one spectacular game against the Chiefs. He had a good game against the Giants, but everything else has been not so good.
So 3 points. We're just going to get right through. I'm going to give you guys one thing to watch for most of these games, right? We'll talk about it a little bit and then get right to the picks.
The year's winding down. You're in efficiency mode now, just wrapping up business.
We have to. I mean, there's playoff implications don't exist here.
For this game.
Yeah. Raiders favored by 3. What you got here?
I buy into the Raiders. I feel like Easton Stick, hockey stick, is going to struggle, particularly with no receivers. I mean, this is a game where if Quentin Johnston really wants to salvage his reputation as a rookie, this is the game to do it. Show up, show there's a reason they drafted you in the first round, not other people, and have the kind of game that you haven't had so far this season.
Yeah, I think again, if you're a Chargers fan, you'd be hoping for a Christian Watson like late season breakout from Quentin Johnston. There was signs of life. There was a big play last week.
Yeah, I was looking. We read out last week sometime. Like I went and found my original reaction to watching his tape that I messaged Renner with. Right, like immediately, first thing I saw, I was like, "Are you sure this guy is an ass?" And I was watching him recently, like the last few weeks, and I don't even see the explosive stuff, like some of the hallmark things that were like, well, okay, he's not great at the catch point. Okay, he doesn't catch the ball particularly well or run great routes or all the things you don't like. It's like, but at least he's, big, strong, and fast. And then you're watching him, it's like, he's not even that at the moment. I'm not seeing this level of explosiveness that would make you buy in to flaws and say, well, at least, he doesn't look like DK Metcalf out there, right? And in that initial reaction to Renner, I was like, I'm kind of left with the question of what if Sidney Rice couldn't really catch the football? That's Quentin Johnston right now. And that's kind of what he looks like at the moment. And right down to the fact that Sidney Rice made some big plays and was, reasonably good in the NFL before injuries just ruined the guy's career. But you never thought of Sidney Rice as like a vastly explosive wide receiver, right? That's kind of what Johnson's looking like at the moment.
Build up speed, but not
switch.
That's
Exactly.
what he has. So we're both taking the Raiders to cover the 3 here. Thursday night football. We'll all be watching because it's football. What else would we be doing? As a parent, you've had to learn so many new skills to provide for your family: how to do copious amounts of laundry, meal plan for even the pickiest eater, and now how to protect your family's financial future. Well, Fabric by Gerber Life provides an easy one-stop shop for your family's financial needs, offering high-quality term life insurance policies plus other financial solutions in all one easy online hub. Fabric was designed by parents for parents to help you get a high-quality, surprisingly affordable term life insurance policy in less than 10 minutes. Fabric has flexible policies that fit your family and your budget, like $1 million in coverage for less than $1 a day. Get your personalized quote in just minutes, and then apply when it's convenient for you. It's all online and on your schedule. You go from start to covered in less than 10 minutes with no health exam required. So join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to protect their family. Apply today in just minutes at meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. That's meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. MEET, fabric.com/PFFNFL. Policies issued by Western Southern Life Insurance Company, not available in certain states. Prices subject to underwriting and health questions. All right, we've got a couple big games this week that we're going to cover early. So going right to the 425 slate. Dallas Cowboys at the Buffalo Bills, one of the games of the week. Again, Dallas, they're the team, them and the Bills, kind of in the thick of playing a ton of good teams, right? The Cowboys just played the Eagles and won. The Bills just beat the Chiefs. So now they get to play each other. Little rematch of some early 90s Super Bowls here, Sam. Jim Kelly, Troy Aikman. It's going to be great. But realistically, a big game here on the slate. Our friend Dan Orlovsky, who's not really our friend. We could call him our friend.
He's not a friend of the show.
He's not a friend of the show. But Dan O said Josh Allen's MVP if he wins this game. I mean, if he single-handedly wins this game by himself, I would give him MVP.
Dan O has been battling against the Shouty Show people this season. Part of me feels sorry for him, right? Because he has to go on these shows with Stephen A. and stuff every week and rail against the idiocy and try and explain that, yes, Josh Allen might have a lot of interceptions, but he also has a lot of touchdowns. And actually, most really good quarterbacks over the last few years have also had quite a lot of interceptions. And it's not just a thing in and of itself that immediately makes you a bad quarterback. And it's like, on the one hand, I feel sorry for having to argue stupidity with facts because there's no point, right? It's like that old adage, never pick a fight with an idiot because they'll drag you down to their level and they'll win with experience. So you feel bad for him. On the other hand, you knew what you were signing up for. You're getting paid quite a lot of money to go on the Shouty Show and be part of the Stephen A. shtick. It's like, this is...
Well, I would do it.
Right. Like, this is part
I'd play a character on TV.
Exactly. It's part of the gig. It's not real. You know what it is. Steve, it's pantomime idiocy. It's not real idiocy. It might be real idiocy as well as pantomime idiocy, but, that's what it is.
So it's a fascinating game because the Bills they're 7-6. Cowboys are 10-3. Cowboys are now, as we've said on the other show or earlier in the week, number 2 seed in the NFC. They're above the Philadelphia Eagles as of right now in the NFC East. it's a battle of the Cowboys, who have the number 1 point differential in the NFL. Sorry, and the Bills are 5th. So yeah, the Bills, all season we've been saying they're far better than a 7-6 team. The Cowboys are sitting there at 10-3, and they hadn't beaten a good team until yesterday or last week. And a big part of the Cowboys splits, as at least one of our listeners, viewers pointed out, or someone followed us on Twitter and said the big advantage here is grass, turf first grass for Dallas. They're 0-3 on grass, which includes Arizona because they wheel the grass in.
So that's dome but grass.
Dome but grass, yes. But there's also Philadelphia and San Francisco. That's where Dallas has not only lost, but kind of got whooped twice on grass. This is a turf field in Buffalo, for whatever it's worth.
This is just chaos. This is grass but indoors and turf but outdoors.
Correct.
It's madness. It's also the battle, like the MVP conversation, I think, is actually a real one. Okay, people aren't making the case for Josh Allen too much, but right now these are number 1 and number 2 in PFF grade overall. Dak Prescott is number 1, 92.1. Josh Allen is number 2, despite the interceptions, 91.0. If you look at just passing grade, the order shuffles around a little bit. But genuinely, this is an MVP statement type of game for one of these guys, if they get the win and are a big part of it. And to me, the MVP race, if you like, is starting to sort of come down to Dak Prescott versus Brock Purdy, honestly.
Yeah.
But I think Allen could force his way into that. If he goes on a run to end this season, given the schedule they have, and this would be one of those games, Allen will end up with a resume that looks quite MVP worthy.
Yeah, if they go on a run, and especially because of the narrative of they fired an offensive coordinator and overcame some adversity or whatever, that will help in that.
The picks were Ken Dorsey's fault.
The actual on-field matchup, I think, is going to be a great one. I mean, Dallas, they got picked apart by Seattle just 2 weeks ago, and I want to continue to give Dan Quinn so much credit for just how he has just run the show on the defense the last 3 years. When Deron Bland was getting beat up by DK Metcalf, they put Stephon Gilmore on him. They put Gilmore on A.J. Brown last week. Dan Quinn continues to adjust. What do they do in this game? Because I think if you look at Buffalo's offensive line, they've been okay this year, but they're not going to match up well against Dallas. I think the Bills are going to want to get rid of the ball quickly.
It's been a pretty good offensive line this year. They've kind of gone the other way of, remember last year they were like, all of their average players were catching the bad end of variance at the same time, and their offensive line was a problem because of that. Well, generally the same personnel, there's been some changes, rookie Osiris Torrance, et cetera. Generally the same personnel is now catching the high end of variance. So it looks like a pretty good offensive line this year, even though they're not winning as many games.
Yeah, it's either...
I agree with you, though. Like they're a bad matchup against Dallas simply because Dallas has the best pass rush in the NFL.
That's
and
what I mean.
Everybody is a bad matchup against them.
And if you watch Buffalo these last couple weeks, it's been like, all right, it's less Stephon Diggs driven the last few weeks, and it's a lot of get the ball out to their running backs and Dalton Kincaid and underneath the coverage. I wonder how much that's going to be the game plan once again, getting the backs and tight ends involved, getting the ball out of Josh Allen's hands quickly. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on. I think James Cook has been fantastic. I think they schemed up some really nice plays for him against the Chiefs last week before they slowed down a little bit in the second half. So that matchup's great. And then can Buffalo do anything to stop this Dallas offense? They are absolutely cooking. You mentioned Dak. He is playing at an elite level this year, best football of his career by far. And, when you're looking at Dak, you say this is the narrative could be the script has flipped here, right? You've got Mike McCarthy, you've got the new footwork, the new West Coast offense that the Cowboys have. You have a whole new Dak this year, or wet blanket of reason here. Is he due for some regression? Because he's never played at this level. This isn't what Dak has done previously. Is he due to regress here down the stretch and actually make the Dak narratives even worse if he collapses here in December? I'm not saying he will. I'm just throwing that out there as a possibility for the shouty shows.
How nice of you.
Yes.
Well, of course, Cam Newton says he's just a game manager anyway. So,
gosh, I'm not even acknowledging.
It is. Like, I think you can argue, though, that we've been arguing for years that Dak Prescott is one of the most sensitive quarterbacks in the NFL to changes in his environment. And as we said previously, that's kind of like a three-headed thing. Supporting cast from a receiving point of view, supporting cast from a pass blocking point of view, offensive line point of view, and then supporting cast from a schematic point of view. I think you could argue this year that two of those things have gone back to levels that they were at previously. The offensive line and the receiving core is as good as it's ever been for Dallas, probably. Maybe the line's a little bit worse, but it's gotten back towards that time when they had, 3 All-Pros on the offensive line, and it was the best line in the NFL. And the big difference this year is this might be the best sort of scheme he's been in so far, right? We didn't think it was going to be that way, given the narrative around Mike McCarthy, but it's difficult to argue with what they're doing right now. And it might be the most help he's been receiving from a scheme point of view in his career. So, yeah, maybe he's just overachieving and he's due to come back down to earth over the back end of the season or into the playoffs. On the other hand, like, this might be the new ceiling for where Dak Prescott can be when everything around him is good.
So again, I think Dak's playing great. If the chat's talking about turnovers, the turnovers last year were always overblown. They were overblown, and then they started to kind of become real, like for 2 weeks at the end. They were always overblown. Just like, the similarity this year is Josh Allen's turnovers, right? For last year, the shouty shows, trashing Dak for all of his turnovers. I mean, he had a dropped pass, pick 6 in overtime, and they were having like legit discourse, like, man, Dak's turnovers, man, they're starting to catch up. Dak's not taking care of the football.
And again, he's swung back all the way to the other direction, like the Bills' offensive line, right? He's gone from, he caught a really bad end of luck, turnover luck, and an absurd volume of his turnover-worthy plays became turnovers. And this year, he's got both the lowest turnover-worthy play rate of his career and the lowest in the NFL. That's not where Dak Prescott typically resides.
Yeah, and Josh Allen has the 11th. We're missing one in there because we'll save for a run, but say the 14th best turnover-worthy play rate in the league this year. Nothing close to the 14 interceptions that he has that are tied for the league lead with Sam Howell. So
Dak this year is halving his career average turnover-worthy play rate. Like, he's chopped it in half.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So Dak's playing great. I'm just saying, like, because it's not in line with the rest of his career, do we see regression, or do we just see, hey, this is what he is going forward? So I'm looking forward to see Prescott against this Bills defense that tries to prevent big plays, and the Cowboys, Dak hit 5 big time throws the other night against Philadelphia, hitting them in crunch time, hitting them over these last few weeks at an incredible rate. The stretch that Dak is on right now, I think, is one of the best we've seen in the last 10 years or so. Since week 6 or whatever it is, Dak Prescott playing at an extremely high level. Bills putting the ball in Josh Allen's hands a lot more recently, so it's going to be a great matchup. Let's make some picks. Bills by 2. I've seen it at 2.5 as well here. Bills by 2. Where are you going with this one?
I feel like Dallas is getting disrespected.
Really?
Yeah. They showed last week. They're for real. They can beat good teams. And Buffalo hasn't shown they're that good a team so far this year. So I think Dallas will win.
All right. I might disrespect them then. I'll take Buffalo to cover the 2. I got Buffalo 26-23.
26-23.
26-23. That puts it at 40. Over-under's 50.5. So I'm basically like predicting chalk. Bills by 3.
Okay.
Right at the number, as Uncle Anthony would say. All right, let's go Sunday Night Football. Baltimore Ravens at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Ravens on the road here, favored by 3 over the Jags. Jags are 8-5, a game ahead of both the Colts and Texans in the AFC South. Ravens sitting at 10-3 with the number 1 seed in sight, controlling their own destiny here in the AFC.
Yeah, I mean, first thing is going to be what Trevor Lawrence looks like another week removed from that high ankle sprain. Remember, we didn't expect him to play last week. He did play, and visibly he didn't look, hampered by it. On the other hand, he had 5 turnover-worthy plays, and it's like that feels like a stretch to say that's a coincidence. I understand it's going up against Cleveland's defense that's very good and, going to force more mistakes than normal, but there were some plays in there that don't make a lot of sense unless you say there's an injury factoring in there.
So if you watched Rams-Ravens the other day, I got a question on Twitter about Matthew Stafford's grade, because people were watching Stafford against the Ravens being like, he's doing amazing things with the football, which he did. He also missed a bunch of throws and then threw one into the end zone that probably should have ended the game. The point I wanted to try to make here, though, was Stafford against a very good Ravens defense made several tight window Staffordy throws, right? Like, I love watching good Matthew Stafford when he makes those incredible throws. That was how Lawrence had been playing for a few games prior to the injury. So think about up the difficulty level against the Ravens here, just like the Browns last week. You're up in the difficulty level. You're tighter window throws. You know there's going to be pressure. It's difficult. So you're up in the difficulty level. And Lawrence had that game a few weeks ago with like 5 or 6 big-time throws where it's like, man, it's almost like he's choosing the higher difficulty level. I'm going to throw a far hash deep out and put it right on my guy. Feels like that's the type of game that he needs to have. Similar throws that Stafford was making last week in Baltimore, minus some of the misses that Stafford had. Like, Lawrence, I think, does have to play at an extremely high level. They're missing Christian Kirk, who I think has been just a really good, dependable outlet for them. They've done a nice job scheming it up for Christian Kirk through the years. Now, they had Parker Washington take a lot of the slot snaps last week. He had a really nice back shoulder touchdown, had a fumble in there as well. I'm a big Parker Washington fan, one of my sleeper receivers as a rookie. But I wonder how much that's going to just start adding up here for the Jags.
The other injury question or thing to monitor going into this game is Kyle Hamilton,
yes.
The Ravens safety / slot corner / matchup weapon thing. He was another one where when it happened, all the injury people were like, oh, that's bad, done for the season type of thing, right? And then it's like, no, actually, he might play this week. So Jackson
MCL?
Yeah, sprain, I think.
Yeah.
Jacksonville's top target is actually Evan Engram, tight end, in terms of both targets and receptions. That's where he goes most often with the football. And Kyle Hamilton is the type of player that can take that away single-handedly. Like, he's that tight end eraser, but he's also the type of guy that kills all of the short stuff, like almost original Antoine Winfield-like. Like Evan Engram's average depth of target or something is like 4 yards. So they give him the ball underneath. They let him run after the catch. They let him sort of get a lot of easy completions that then add up to big plays when he gets the ball in his hands. Hamilton's the kind of guy that could take that away immediately and sort of force this offense to be radically more one-dimensional than it wants to be and much more aggressive vertically. On the other hand, if he's not actually Kyle Hamilton, if he plays but he's not the same guy, or if he just doesn't play, like his backup might be Darryl Worley, who's a former bad cornerback turned who knows what he is as a safety at this point. But that's a big dynamic in this game. Like if Hamilton plays and is 100% or looks his self, that's a massive boost for the Ravens defense. If he isn't, it's a potential area to attack or to lean on for Jacksonville.
Roquan Smith, linebacker for the Ravens, also questionable at the moment. I don't think he's as injured as Hamilton, but we'll see what happens. Both guys were limited at practice as of Wednesday. I do wonder, so obviously both teams have injuries in the whole deal, but I wonder how much the Jags' offensive line injuries are going to start catching up too. Because look, I think Lawrence is healthy now, right? Like, is he just healthy? Is he okay? I don't even know if he's on the injury report. I can't believe high ankle sprains are just like a play next week type of deal, and then they're okay.
I mean, I don't think you're healthy.
Not healthy, but again, we said there was probably some throwing issues with Lawrence, but maybe not some mobility issues. But the offensive line with Cam Robinson's already out, and Walker Little at left tackle is questionable, and they had to get to Blake Nance at a guard playing tackle trying to cover.
After Ezra Cleveland, a guard playing tackle.
Ezra Cleveland. I mean, so they're going through. I wonder how much. So Kyle Hamilton's a big injury for the Ravens, but I think the Jags, their issues might be starting to catch up to them.
Yep.
The other, from a narrative perspective for Jacksonville, all season we've been saying, okay, they, prove that you could beat good teams. That's what I've been asking for. They beat Buffalo earlier in the year. They got beat up pretty bad by the 49ers. I think we could look at that Texans win in Week 12 and say that's a good win against a tough Texans team that already beat you. But they lost to Cincinnati, which that was supposed to be their next big test.
Yeah.
And it wasn't Joe Burrow Cincinnati, it was Jake Browning Cincinnati. And they let Jake Browning, who's good now, he's good, but they let him complete over 80% of his passes. They let Joe Flacco pick them apart last week with busted coverages and the whole thing. The pass coverage is falling apart. I think this is it's trending in the wrong direction, I think, for the Jags right here.
Yeah, they missed Tyson Campbell. Tyson Campbell hasn't played well even when he's been on the field. Like, his career is ridiculous. It's been like 50 grade, 88 grade, 50 grade again. He's gone from like not good, all pro, not good is the sequence of his career so far. It's a bizarre game in terms of how many people are injured at key positions and are relevant to how this goes. The one-on-one matchup that could be fun to watch is Josh Allen, the edge rusher, and Jacksonville's basically primary/only source of pass rush, going up against Ronnie Stanley, who theoretically is one of the best pass blocking tackles in the game, not having his best season. So, like, normally if this was the matchup, you would say Stanley beats Josh Allen in this one-on-one matchup. This year, though, like, Allen's having a career year, Stanley's having a down year. It's much more in favor of Josh Allen, I think, than it would be normally.
One other matchup to watch, I always highlight the difficulty that linebackers have against the Ravens. Linebackers also have that similar difficulty against the Shanahan schemes. I mentioned before the Niners game when they got whooped that Foye Oluokun and Devin Lloyd, having excellent seasons, they're going to need them to play well. They did not play well against the Niners. Kind of similar thing here with the Ravens. Can those guys make some plays? I don't know, man. I don't like the way the Jags are trending. So Ravens favored by 3 here in Jacksonville. It's going to be electric on Sunday Night Football. It's Jags Ravens. It's a great time to retweet highlights of Jimmy Smith going 15 catches for 291 against the 2000 Ravens.
191, right?
291.
291?
He had 291 receiving yards. Yes. Trust me on this.
Okay. Oh, against the
Ravens
across 2 games.
No, in 1 game.
I thought it was 191 in that one game.
No, 15 catches for 291 yards against the 2000 Ravens.
Yeah.
Look, Jimmy Smith game logs.
Yeah, all right.
Make your pick.
I'm going to go with the Ravens.
I'm also gonna take the Ravens. Are we being too harsh on the Jags?
No, I mean, I think they've fallen like the Lions. They have fallen off. They
15.
don't look the
You
same.
just watched this game. 15 catches, 291, 3 touchdowns, targeted 21 times, in a 39-36 loss against the 2000 Ravens. The Jags got like 10% of the points against the Ravens that year in that game,
and a ton of the yardage.
Yeah,
like that was
before they were really the 2000 Ravens.
Yeah,
I'll also take Baltimore to cover the 3 here in Jacksonville. Or will I? Will I? Yeah. Yeah, give me Baltimore. All right, let's go Discord game of the week. Don't forget, you guys can join our Discord. Links in the description, and you can vote on every single game. The closest game we had, though, was Tampa Bay Bucks at the Green Bay Packers. Packers favored by 3.5 here. Packers coming off a loss to Cutlets on Monday night.
Tommy Cutlets.
And Bucks, man, back in first place in the NFC South at 6-7, and the Packers are sitting here at 6-7 with the same record in third place in the NFC North,
along with everybody else in the league.
How much do the Packers? They were trending, man. They were in the right direction. This is why, like, when I say they're trending this way, that way, that stuff doesn't really matter at all.
It's all chaos. Like, it's all noise. This is the thing. We spend the entire time, us and everybody else, like we at least try and have the discipline to wait for like a 3-week trend before you make the shouty shows are just like week to week. Going,
I just saw it.
They're good. They're bad.
They had 2 good plays.
Right.
Everything's changed.
We try and have the self-discipline to be like, after 3 weeks, oh, look, he's turned a corner. He's moving in the right direction. And then it still doesn't mean anything. Like, it's crazy that it's such small sample sizes in the NFL that nothing necessarily means anything in the course of a season.
That's it. To wrap it up.
Nothing means anything. It's all irrelevant.
Make our picks and get out of here.
It's all crap. Nobody knows anything. It's ridiculous.
I had a quick theory while we're on this quick tangent here. I had a quick theory that came to me yesterday. Why is there so much parity? Why is almost every team here in Week 15 in the playoff picture? Well, first, because they extended the season. Second, though, I do think the NFL. Remember when we were doing all of our preview shows last year, and we were looking at everybody's depth chart, and we're like, nobody. Like, a lot of starters are coming back. Nobody has a lot of big moves to make. There's not a lot of big free agents. I think there's a lot of parity from a team building standpoint around the NFL right now. I think there's not just parity in the NFL and the way they do schedules and everything, but I think there's team building parity. I don't think there's a ton of teams the last few years that have drafted horribly. I think teams are drafting better.
So this is the thing.
I think the free agency has been like kind of tightened up a little bit, and teams are keeping their good players. And I think there's team building parity right now, and that's why so many teams are 6-7, 7-6, and in the same range.
I think that's where the big change has been in the last decade is the number of teams that are marks has diminished.
Can I explain why I think that could be? PFF. Honestly.
Okay.
Not just the grades or the data or whatever. Everybody has access to every single play, watching plays, scouting, evaluating. The tools are better than ever, including PFF data and PFF grades and ways to evaluate players. I really think because that's been more prevalent the last 5 or 10 years that has helped tighten things up from a team building standpoint.
I just think all of the elements here. The last couple of drafts we've looked at it, and you're like, there haven't been these drafts where you're like, what is this team doing? This is madness. This is idiocy. Like, this is completely. You come out of almost every draft with almost every team. You're like, I kind of like it. I got with I get the idea of what they're doing, even if I didn't agree with specific picks. It feels like we've lost the time where a team is just out here like blindfoldly, randomly picking guys that are 8 rounds ahead of where they're supposed to go, And then free agency, the same thing. Like we've kind of gone past the point where teams are just throwing stupid money at random people for no reason, or like literal salary cap hell where they've had to hemorrhage the entire roster because they got themselves in a bad spot. These things are all kind of gone. I think a lot of the success previously came from other teams exploiting the teams that got themselves into stupid situations. Now teams aren't doing that.
Yeah.
So most teams are in the same spot, and the things that differentiate them are, great quarterbacks or great coaching or whatever.
Sorry for bringing up a Wednesday topic, but it just kind of hit me, and I'm, as we're looking at a 6-7 versus 6-7 Bucs and Packers game, which we're breaking down right now. I think that's a big part of things here. So Bucs won a couple games in a row here. Big game last week against the Falcons. There's still, Baker Mayfield making clutch plays down the stretch here. That's kind of been the Bucs' MO. They're not scoring a ton of points. The defense has kept them in a lot of games. Whereas the Packers, again, a disappointing game where it looked like they had flipped their switch. Jordan Love looks like an elite quarterback for a multiple-week stretch. Defense was playing better. What are we going to get from Green Bay now at home against the Bucs? Can they bounce back from the disappointment Monday night?
Yeah, so I don't think it explains all of it, but somebody tweeted me at play, and I looked up a few more. Like some of the all-22 views of Jordan Love's throws against the Giants, you could see the wind having a pretty major impact. It's one of those things that I think sometimes we don't get to appreciate how big a factor it is because you're not there and the camera doesn't always pick it up, particularly the sideline view or the TV view. But some of those passes he put in the air moved a lot in the air and looked like horrendous ball location when actually the location might have been okay had the wind not taken it. And
I'm telling you, I think we need to do those adjustments more.
But the problem is, so it's not necessarily, it's not a constant, right? Like you could sort of look at that and you go, well, it didn't affect Cutlets. Cutlets is out there carving through the wind left, right, and center. That wasn't a problem. But if the wind is gusting and it gusts at the wrong time, one pass is going to go awry, the other pass isn't, right? So it's a difficult thing.
I view it as, that's why I think dome adjustments are more important than outdoor, because the dome doesn't have those elements.
Right.
You just never have to deal with it, and you know that there's a consistency there. All I'm saying is, look, I know that like there's fun memes that you can make about Bears quarterbacks historically and how bad their production is. Mm-hmm. Part of it's playing in Chicago.
Sure.
Not all of it.
The Windy City.
It is difficult throwing in Chicago. Maybe we've underrated Eli Manning's career because we look at the stats too much, and he actually, because he's thrown in the elements.
I did think that during that game.
Right? I'm just saying, like, I'm telling you, that is a thing. Playing in Buffalo, New England, the New Jerseys matters versus playing in a dome. Playing in Chicago probably matters, and we should adjust our perspective if we're only looking at stats and production.
And, of course, you've also got he was missing Christian Watson. He was missing Luke Musgrave. Like, he didn't have a couple of his primary targets in that game. So, look, I'm not saying it explains all of it. There's still a bunch of plays where you're like, why are you specifically trying to make the throw from an off-balance position, falling away. Like, this is not good technique, and you're not being forced into it. You're voluntarily throwing without good technique in some of these plays. But I do wonder if it means you could see a quick bounce back next week, if he just doesn't get a bunch of passes taken by the wind So I don't think it necessarily means that the previous few games were a complete fabrication and didn't represent any kind of step forward in the right direction. This might have just been a random bad day at the office in a trend that is pointing upwards.
Bucs are running the ball a little bit more effectively the last couple weeks after just being horrible for about a year and a half. Packers defense has kind of been hit or miss against the run. I think there might be some opportunities there, but again, I think
been hit or miss overall. Packers defense.
Overall, it really has been. I mean, there were weeks where it's like they were outstanding up front, and other times it looked like they were trying to fit the run with 4 people.
I think they're particularly bad situationally. Like I think overall the defense. A lot of Packers fans hate the current defensive coaching setup and all that kind of thing, right? And it's like the overall production is not bad. It's fine. They're middle of the pack somewhere. No pun intended. But when the situation gets important, it seems to that's when they have their worst play. Like even against the Giants, right? They end up going ahead in that game. Jordan Love turns it on in the fourth quarter, as his wont, and then they go crazy soft with the coverage, right? They back off. They play off-man coverage on a critical drive where Cutlets has to move the length of the field. That's too easy. You can't do that. You need to be more aggressive. You need to get either up in a guy's face or you need to play some zone and have your eyes on the football. You can't do what they did on that drive, and that's what they seem to do consistently in those situations.
Are you saying it's going to come down to another Baker Mayfield game-winning drive? That's how the Bucs have played. A lot of tight games and relying on Baker's grit at the end of the game.
Yeah, and I'm saying that if it does, there's a pretty good chance he comes good again because Joe Barry's defense is just going to get too conservative.
All right, let's make some picks here. Packers by 3.5. Looks like I did the weather check because it's December in Green Bay. It's just in the 40s, just like Buffalo. 40s.
How many eighths cloud cover?
We didn't get to that. I appreciate the meteorologists and the other people, the pilots that jumped into the mentions.
Pilots
in our comments.
Overcast clouds, according. That's complete, right? That's 8/8. Was what he was saying, I think.
Yeah, I think it's clouds.
So 8/8 cloudy and in 39 according
beautiful
to this.
December weather. So Packers by 3.5. Where are you going with this one?
Okay, I'm going to give him one shot and buy into the Green Bay, the Jordan Love thing. The wind was a problem last week. It's not going to be a problem this week.
I thought you were going to say Tampa Bay.
Don't let me down,
buy
Jordan.
into them. It's going to be a fascinating stretch here.
I told you before. I have already jumped off. I'm never bing back into Baker Mayfield again. I've already noticed. Out. I'm not.
I've noticed you had plenty of times to jump back on here.
Not doing it.
You had plenty of times this year to jump back on. So we'll get through the rest of the games here. That's the Discord game of the week. But got to tell you about our Prize Picks lineup for this weekend. It's going to hit. This one's going to win.
Yeah.
We got Jamar Chase on Saturday afternoon going more than 64.5 receiving yards. We'll talk about that game in a minute here. We got Deebo Samuel going more than 61.5 receiving yards for the 49ers against the Cardinals. We have Kyren Williams going more than 80.5 rushing yards against the Commanders on Sunday. So we're going more. Jamar Chase, Deebo Samuel, and Kyren Williams. That's our Prize Picks lineup for this week over here at PFF. With Prize Picks, you got basketball season here. You can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League. It's a league created specifically for combo projections that includes 2 or more players from different sports or leagues. For example, you can go LeBron James plus Travis Kelce at 10.5 combo of 3-pointers made and receptions. You can play alongside some of Prize Picks' favorite players like rapper Meek Mill and comedian Andrew Schultz. You can do that in the community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the Prize Picks community every single week. Prize Picks even offers a reboot policy so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. So for football and basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half, doesn't return in the second, that player is rebooted. Prize Picks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. So here's what you do. You go to prizepicks.com/PFFNFL. Use code PFFNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that's prizepicks.com/PFFNFL. Use code PFFNFL for a first deposit match up to $100.
Also, don't forget that if you do it as a flex play, you might not get screwed the way that Eli has been screwed in recent weeks. You
Oh,
might
okay.
still win your money even if a guy doesn't hit.
So don't do it as a flex.
No, do it as a flex.
Or do it
'cause
as a flex. I got you.
if Nico Collins leaves the game in the first quarter with his injury and doesn't,
Then you get the reboot.
you get the reboot, but you also win anyway.
Yes, I got it. So they're making us work on Saturdays now.
Damn it.
Yeah. A Saturday triple header, which, look, young me would have loved. Married with 4 kids me, whose only off day is on Saturday. We have to have difficult conversations. I'm not a bachelor anymore. My family's back.
Yeah.
I picked them up at the airport the other day. And we get a triple header on Saturday. So I'm still trying to figure out how to break the news to Kelly that there's 3 games, starting with the Minnesota Vikings at the Cincinnati Bengals. We should actually go to the game. Island game, we should go.
The which game?
Vikings-Bengals.
Which slot is that?
1 o'clock Saturday.
The 1 o'clock slot.
Yeah.
I have to write a refocus on that game.
Do you? You should do it from the stadium.
From the press box.
When I went to the game the other day, I hooked up to the Bengals Wi-Fi because it was Sunday night, and I was watching the All-22 of the
Are you still
Sunday
hooked
game.
into like the press Wi-Fi? Could you get
Not the
coverage?
press. I had the stadium Wi-Fi, which was good enough to grind film from the last row of the stadium, actually, believe it or not. So you could grind film and then write your refill. Vikings at the Bengals. It's Nick Mullins getting the start for the Vikings. Bengals are favored by 3 here. Nick Mullins versus Jake Browning would have been far less attractive just a few weeks ago if you had heard this. But Jake Browning balling out these last couple weeks here.
Yeah, he has been. It's been pretty impressive. Now, are we in this? Is Jake Browning actually a lot better than people thought he was, or has he just had 2 really good games and the sample size nothing means anything anymore? Right? I don't know yet.
Nothing means.
And I don't know how long you need to see it before you decide. It's actually real.
I'll say this: the Vikings are so. We love team building. We love seeing what our takes were going to be, like the way teams have made decisions and how it's all going to play out. But I thought the Vikings were one of the more fascinating teams to just keep an eye on this season because their defense on paper, they got rid of stars, right? They got rid of stars and replaced them with unheralded, unproven young players. And I was curious because you've got, just the whole. Sorry, let's cut that for social. Are they evaluating players differently? You've got Brian Flores' scheme, which was going to be a completely different scheme. Are they going to blitz like crazy? And it started off slow, but they have been excellent these last few weeks. And it's all the players that they invested in, that they bought into, who did not have a proven track record. The Cameron Bynums of the world, the Josh Metellises, Ivan Pace, of course, as an undrafted rookie linebacker. They've turned it into a very good defense there. And that's now an awesome matchup against Jake Browning, who just completes 80% of his passes.
Yeah, I mean, I think Brian Flores is assistant coach of the year, and I think at this point it might be an absolute landslide. Like last year it was Ben Johnson, and I think the same thing was true. It was clearly Ben Johnson. This year I think it's clearly Brian Flores. We said coming into the year, look, when a defense or when one side of the ball is playing horrendously and there's obviously a schematic problem, there's a degree to which simply removing the problem will solve a lot of your woes, right? So the Vikings got rid of Ed Donatel, who was the defensive coordinator a year ago, clearly dragging the unit down. It wasn't going well. If they just done that and replaced him with anybody, it probably would have had a pretty big step forward. But what Flores has been doing to a group that was built to suit a defense almost diametrically opposite this one in terms of philosophy has been remarkable. Like they're the most blitz-happy team in the NFL. They blitz more than anybody else. They're the only team in the NFL to blitz on more than 50% of their snaps. But they're not just the sort of they're not doing that in a conventional way that you imagine when you say, really blitz-happy team. They almost never blitz just one guy, right? So they're way down at the bottom of the rankings in terms of five-man rushes, right? So just one extra dude. They lead the league by a long way with six-man rushes, and they're second in the league with seven-man rushes. But they're also second in the league in three-man rushes, right? So what the Vikings and Flores do is they crowd the line of scrimmage. They make every play look like pressure is coming, and not just pressure, but a lot of it, right? And then you're faced with this dilemma. if you're Jake Browning, for example, right? You're surveying this landscape. There's 7, 8 guys up at the line of scrimmage, and you're like, I don't know if 6 guys are coming and I can pick it up, if 7 guys are coming and I can't pick it up, or if 3 guys are coming and actually, if I'm trying to get rid of the ball immediately, I'm throwing right to 3 people, right? 3 defenders. And that's every snap for these quarterbacks. In addition to, it's weird personnel. There's 3 safeties on the field. I don't know where they're necessarily going to be. I don't know what the rules are for them and where they're supposed to, is one of these safeties driving on the dig? Are they passing it off? Like, all of this has to happen immediately, pre and post snap for these quarterbacks. And I think that's a nightmare for every quarterback. I think it's particularly difficult for a guy who's going on his, 4th start at this point. And if I was a betting man, which effectively we are in this show, I would say this will be a bad day at the office for Jake Browning.
2 things that I heard this week to kind of back up that point was Kirk Cousins on the Manning cast. They were going through and they're saying Wink's going 0 blitz. And when Wink goes 0, it's like you have 4 guys across the top kind of off coverage, and they were all yelling out, hey, throw the quick out to the slot.
Right.
And that's exactly what Jordan Love did on that play. And then Cousins said, well, if that was Flores' 0, might be a corner there. Right. So he's playing the blitz coverages with extra trickeration on the back end, like different rules, as you said, or different ways of doing it. It's not like, hey, when you get this look against Wink, you kind of know where you're going to go with the ball. There was that one, and then Harrison Phillips, the defensive tackle for the Vikings, kind of breaking down in some interview on NFL Network, I think it was, about how it's not just, hey, you've got the strong side A gap on this play. He's like, based off the rules, I could have 4 different gaps, and it's all reading it out. And this isn't like, it's not like a brand new defense, but it is far more complicated, different than what the Vikings had done. And they've got a bunch of smart veteran players mixed with the young players that they've invested in that I said that are executing it really well. So all that said, the Vikings defense has turned into #fun to watch. Don't know what you're going to get from them on a play-by-play basis, except they've played really well. Going up against Browning, I think it's going to be an excellent matchup. And then offensively for the Vikings, they've decided to move on from Josh Dobbs. There was a lot of drops in the game the other day, but they didn't score any points.
At least
or they
for the
scored
moment.
3 points. Nick Mullins came in to lead the field goal drive for Minnesota.
Yeah.
The one score. Justin Jefferson, is he questionable at this point with the?
He is, but he sounds like he's going to play. He certainly thinks he's going to play.
So the intriguing thing here with Mullins is, look, I mean, with Justin Jefferson back, what's the look?
I'm fascinated that there is an intriguing thing about Nick Mullins.
He can spread.
You can't possibly still want more Nick Mullins data points.
That's not more data. He could. It's game 2 of having Justin Jefferson back.
Yeah.
And knowing the fact that the Vikings had a productive passing attack without Justin Jefferson, I thought was encouraging for Minnesota. So now you move everybody down a notch on the depth chart, and you got Jordan Addison, and you got Hawkinson, who's had to, be a high volume target at times this year. It's an intriguing group of playmakers, and Nick Mullins can maybe get them the ball. That's all.
All right, Are you a little bit surprised they haven't put Jaron Hall back in as the starter? Now, look, I said this to you yesterday. They have, 4 games left.
I don't know what happened there.
What are the chances that all 3 of these guys play another game?
I don't know what would have happened. I don't know what would have happened.
Mullins
that Nick
wasn't healthy, right? When Jaron Hall got the start, I don't think Mullins was healthy.
Oh.
So they were forced into this.
And Hall had 8 or 10 good play, like a good 10-play stretch or whatever.
Right, yeah, like one drive, right? So they were forced into this dynamic where Dobbs isn't ready because he arrived in the building yesterday, and, we have the rookie to go, and then the rookie got hurt, and it's like, crap, Dobbs has to play without knowing anything. Like, I think the idea was that Mullins wasn't ready to play or healthy at that point. Now he's healthy. Apparently he's ahead of Hall on the depth chart. But I thought, given, as you say, it's like, dude, I'm railing against sample sizes that are 2 or 3 games big, and we're talking about one drive. But given that one drive and the fact that we kind of know Nick Mullins, I'm surprised they haven't given him a shot. But I think it's because, they're in the playoff hunt, and it's like, it's seen as riskier than if he had nothing to lose. But I do think that none of these guys are Like, obviously, they're all massive, massive downgrades from Kirk Cousins, and I suspect they're going to look similar in terms of like making enough mistakes to lose the game. So with 4 games left, it wouldn't shock me if each one of these quarterbacks is going to get a game at some point.
All right, man, we got to make some picks here. Bengals are favored by 3. Vegas is buying into Jake Browning against this Vikings defense.
Yeah.
Last year, when we started these Saturday games, that was when Minnesota played the Colts, made the greatest comeback in NFL history. So Minnesota on a Saturday in December, man. What do you think?
I talked myself into the Vikings defense doing a number on Jake Browning, so that's where I'm going.
You know, you almost talked me into that. I almost talked myself into that as well. But I didn't believe in Jake Browning last week.
No.
And now I will.
Now you do.
Yeah.
Just 1 game. That's all it takes, huh?
Yeah. Well, 2 games.
Okay.
2 games.
He also...
If Jake Browning wins this game, he's MVP.
People tend to have forgotten that his first start was garbage. He played badly. He's played 3 games now. 2 of them have been fantastic, and 1 of them has been ass.
Yes. But again, when stories are told when you make cutoff points.
Yeah.
Of course, it was his first start. Everything's different now. Since his first start, he's great.
You brought up that Vikings-Colts greatest comeback game. I would urge people to go and listen to the interview that Jeff Saturday had on Pat McAfee. It's on YouTube in its own video, right? 10 minutes or whatever it is.
A one-off.
Yeah, well, there you go, one-off, just like us. It's so funny. It really is. Like, just to hear how, I mean, everyone said this at the time, but it's like this dude is way in over his head, right? And I think we undersold just how in over his head he was, Jeff Saturday. He sort of talks about it to McAfee, and he's like, you know, he went into the coaches and was like, I don't know anything. I'm just here to help you guys do your job, basically. What do you need from me? What could I do to facilitate you guys doing a good job? But then during that game, the Justin Jefferson Vikings comeback thing, they're getting they're getting carved up in the second half. And Jeff Saturday goes over to Gus, right? He's like, Gus, what coverage are we running? We're getting, Justin Jefferson seems to be carving us up. And Gus like, dude, we've called them all. Like, none of them are working. But it struck me as very funny that he's sort of standing there watching this in the sideline and didn't know what they were running. It was just like, we should probably stop running the coverage that's allowing Justin Jefferson to have a catch every time he wants. Let's think about going in another direction. And Gus like, dude, we've gone through the whole playbook at this point. Nothing's working.
It reminds me, you ever have a dream where you've just been placed in a situation that you just have no idea what you're doing?
No.
You never just been... every now and again, I'm playing high school football or something like that at tight end. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing.
No, I've never had that.
And they'll call a play or something. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. Sounds like
Jeff Saturday.
Sounds like when you're an
Coach
ESPN
Saturday.
analyst and you become a coach in a week.
Coach Saturday.
Yeah. All right. Second Saturday game of the triple-header, Pittsburgh Steelers at the Indianapolis Colts. Little Peyton Manning, Ben Roethlisberger. It's going to be great. Colts favored by 1.5 here. Because the odds are in our favor that a couple 7-6 teams will play each other because everybody's 7-6. That's what we have here: 7-6 Steelers and the 7-6 Indianapolis Colts. What are you looking for in this game?
We're getting another Trubisky game, right?
Mitchell Trubisky is back. Mm-hmm. The fans were calling for Mason Rudolph.
Yes, they were.
Who I believe, I said this about Nick Foles a couple years ago, the best third-string quarterback in the NFL, Mason Rudolph.
How down bad do you have to be chanting Mason Rudolph?
I have to say, I thought Trubisky would play better than he did.
Yeah.
I mean, based off what we'd seen with him in Pittsburgh, the very little that we saw at the end of the Arizona game. And look, I know New England's got a pretty good defense, and they're underrated despite having only 3 wins. But Trubisky, he's just been look, I'm not saying he's great. I thought he'd play a little bit better because there's some volatility to him. He was a tick late on a few throws, a couple turnover-worthy plays, but he had been at least sprinkling in big-time throws in his limited starts in Pittsburgh and getting the ball down the field to some of their playmakers and work in the middle of the field. And we just didn't see enough of that. So I think he still has that in him, but I'm, far less excited about Trubisky. And I wonder if it will be actually a short leash for Trubisky in this game. They're going to give him 1 more week of full practice, right? Because it was a short week, Thursday game, maybe a week of full practice. That's what the Steelers are banking on here.
Yeah, and the Colts don't have as good a defense as New England, but they do have a pretty nasty pass rush that can cause some problems. So it won't be an easy game, I wouldn't have thought, for Trubisky. So absolutely, I would say it has to be a pretty short leash because they do have a viable alternative, right? It's not like some of these other teams where you're like, okay, I don't want to play this guy. On the other hand, he's clearly better than the alternative option that I have, so I kind of have to. They can go to Rudolph, I would imagine, without expecting much of a downturn if Trubisky isn't playing well.
Best third stringer in the league.
Yeah. TJ Watt cleared from his concussion protocol and the whole drama surrounding that. I mean, he got kneed in the face by Zeke Elliott pretty early in that game. So he got checked out for concussion, went back in the game, had to put a darker visor on during the game, which is obviously a pretty big red flag for, light sensitivity, which is a concussion symptom. Didn't do his post-game interviews because of a migraine, quote unquote. That feels like that shouldn't happen anymore, given the measures in place to prevent those things happening.
Yeah, I don't understand it. I don't understand how that gets through. We all saw him get kicked in the head and come up woozy, right?
Yeah. Plus those other things,
If he's cleared to play.
I mean, he didn't personally go out there with a screwdriver and change his visor, right? At the point where he was asking somebody for a darker tint, that should have removed him from the game.
Somebody's like, oh, it's a night game. Of course, the lights are really bright tonight. Of course you need a darker visor. That's why. So if he is going to be playing, it looks like Braden Smith, the right tackle for the Colts, questionable here, which puts my friend Blake Freeland in there to start.
Your friend.
I mean,
the model says yes, the heart says no.
That's correct. He's played better in recent weeks when he's been starting. He was, started the last couple games, pass pro. He's just got 3 pass protection games under a 40 PFF grade. He's very athletic and just not ready to pass protect in the NFL, I don't think. So it could be a huge advantage.
When do we get Jared Veldheer? Did you see this? Jared Veldheer signed for the Colts on their practice squad.
What?
Yeah. Jared Veldheer.
Why does he keep coming back?
Well, for more to the point, have you seen a picture of him recently?
No.
Like the last couple of times I had seen Jared Veldheer, it was about surrounding some like initiative he was doing with school lunches or that kind of thing, right? And he's in the category of those linemen that have lost like 100 pounds since playing, right? Like Jared Veldheer is one of those guys where you look at him like, dude, how much weight has that guy lost? Okay, those articles were a while ago, but he would have needed to put on 60 pounds to be in NFL like playing shape from the last time I saw him. So I have no idea what state he's in at the moment, but that's a wild signing given those photographs.
I don't know how many of our listeners know who Jared Veldheer is.
Okay.
He's 6'8". He was like a big center, D3. Was he D3?
Something.
Like a small school center turned NFL tackle who had a nice little run with the Raiders at tackle.
Yes, also played with the Cardinals. But he's also, one of the reasons you should know him is he's part of one of the most comical photographs in NFL history of just like absurdly jacked human beings. Like, who is it? Laron Landry has that one picture where he's like just, supplemented out of his gills, right? Just looks like an absolute monster.
Now you're making accusations.
No, supplements. I didn't say they were perfectly legal.
Supplements. Okay, got it.
Jared Veldheer is another one where he just looks like an absolute like Marvel character standing next to a bunch of normal human beings. So he's got that picture, which you can find if you Google, or the show will throw it up right now because we got awesome people. That's him on the left there.
Wow.
And then the people on the right are normal people. So he looked like an absolute lunatic, freak show, Marvel superhuman. But then the last time I saw him...
He might not have a big impact on the game we're talking about, though.
No, the last time I saw him, he looked like he's carrying less weight than you are. At a similar height.
He's playing...
And apparently he signed for the Colts practice squad to play football.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with that. Colts pass rush, as you mentioned, I think has been solid. Their front four grading well. DeForest Buckner's questionable, but I like the way the Colts defense played tough, man. And if Trubisky keeps putting the ball in harm's way, Colts will take advantage. Colts are favored by 1.5 here. Steelers also went from 7-4 to 7-6. They set another record. I think they were the first team. It was something like first team that had X number of wins and then lost back-to-back games with teams that had 2 or fewer wins. Or, I don't know. It was something bad to lose to the Cardinals and the Patriots in back-to-back weeks to land at 7-6 here. Feels also like the game where right when you're about to write off the Pittsburgh Steelers, they come back and win. That's Valdir?
Yeah. That's what he looked like relatively recently.
Yeah. It's like he's 240 now.
It's even lighter than Blake Freeland.
It certainly is. Maybe that's why he's in there, to teach him. How do you get back to
Here's how you
jacked
play.
like I did?
Here's how you play at 220 pounds at offensive tackle.
We got a lot of games here, man. Let's make a pick. Colts by 1.5 here.
I don't like buying into Gardner Minshew. On the other hand, Trubisky was terrible last time. So, Colts.
My only reasoning here is that once the back's against the wall, Mike Tomlin, because if they're 7-7, all of a sudden, we're up against it here.
We're up against the losing season.
The losing season. So
Can't have
Tomlin,
that.
I'll take the Steelers to cover the 1.5 here. Let's go the third game on Saturdays. The Denver Broncos and the Detroit Lions. Lions favored by 4, 8:15 Saturday night. Lions starting to lose a little confidence in the Lions here. They're down to 9-4 now, Sam.
Yeah.
After their loss to the Bears last week. Broncos 7-6, like every other team in the AFC, a game behind the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC West.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I think that very easily could become 2 games this week between them playing Broncos, Lions, and Chiefs, Patriots. So,
yeah, it could. It could equally not. This Detroit team is in trouble. I think their defense is bad recently. They haven't been able to stop anybody. Okay, I think they're unusually susceptible to quarterbacks that can run, and obviously Justin Fields is a nightmare for that. But this year's version of Russ is much more mobile than he was a year ago. Like, he can make plays on the ground with his legs. Denver's offense isn't bad. I think they can have some success against the Lions' defense. And then Detroit's offense, it's been struggling badly recently. Like, Jared Goff has had 3 out of 4 of his last games have been awful. He's taken himself like 15 spots down the PFF grades in the last month. Hasn't been playing well at all. And then quietly, since Denver's defense is putting up top 5 numbers since the turnaround from being one of the most wretched defenses in NFL history to start the year.
Yeah, the Broncos have done a great job forcing turnovers, which we always talk about as, at some point that runs out. But the trend here for Goff since Thanksgiving, the week before Thanksgiving, 3 turnover-worthy plays against the Bears, 3 against the Packers, none against the Saints, and then 2 last week against the Bears again.
He only has 14 on the season.
Yeah. So that's 8 out of his 14.
Yeah.
That's 57.1% of his turnover-worthy plays in the last 4 weeks for Jared Goff. That's what I bring to the table here.
His freakish percentage ability.
Immediate percentages. Yeah. It's 5 actual interceptions in the last 4 games. Mm-hmm. It's PFF grades of 47, 52, 77, and 44.
Yeah.
So 3 of his 4 worst games in the last 4 weeks.
And his 3 worst games. His
3 worst games, yes.
Right, of the season have come in the last 4 weeks. And the 4th that was bad was that Ravens game, which, makes more sense because the Ravens look really good, but that wasn't that far ago. That was the start. That was the first of their games where it's like, oh, whoa, where did that come from? The Lions have been on a pretty good run. Their only other their random loss was the Seattle one, right? But that was back in week 2. And then they'd been cooking. They ran into Baltimore and, remember, got absolutely whooped, both sides of the ball, complete beatdown. And you're like, where the hell did that come from? But then you sort of dismissed it as, well, maybe the Ravens are really good and these things happen. But that really was the start of this weird run where they've actually lost quite a lot or been bad or both.
So I wonder, because one of my favorite things about the Lions is the fact that they've accumulated so many difficult-to-cover playmakers, including the running backs and the speed of Gibbs and the power of Montgomery. So they've got all these different answers. How much do they end up relying a little bit more on the run game? Are they going to try to dial this back and take a little bit off of Goff's plate? Because I liked the game earlier in the year against the Bucs where they had no running game. They were injured in the backfield, and Goff was able to kind of run the show and drop back 45 times and still win. But the way he's in a bit of a slump right now, I wonder how much they go back to slowing it down, run game, and I think we're going to see maybe a lower scoring game because that's how the Broncos have played. Again, last week, it's not a high volume game from Russell Wilson, but there's been 1 or 2 special throws per week, even more a couple weeks ago in their loss, but 1 or 2 special throws a week from Russell Wilson, trust in the defense. It's very early Seahawks-ish, actually, with the Broncos, the way they've been playing and how good they've been playing on the defensive side of the ball. I think it's going to be a great game, Sam. But I'm really curious to see how the Lions offense, with Goff's struggles 3 out of the last 4 weeks here, how they adjust.
Yep. I'm kind of buying into Denver. I think the Lions are kind of in trouble.
As the underdogs here. So I don't know if I mentioned the line before, but Detroit by 4 on Saturday night. Is that your pick?
Yep. By the way, one mention, P.J. Locke, the guy that's starting because Kareem Jackson is suspended, has looked really good. Like, they don't actually – they may have upgraded by having the lunatic torpedo, penalty magnet safety off the field, even above and beyond the penalties that's costing them.
Yeah, it's hashtag fun to watch. Denver turn things around and other players step up, like PJ Locke, making plays every single week, especially even after a guy like Kareem Jackson. Jackson had played solid safety for a few weeks, a few years, the last couple seasons here. So, yeah, good job by PJ Locke. All right, man. You're taking Denver?
Mm-hmm.
I'll go Denver as well. See if so. By 4? Yeah, we'll say by 4. I'll take the Broncos getting the 4 points here. All right, got to tell you about our friends over at AG1, the daily foundational nutrition supplement that supports whole body health. We drink it every single day here on the PFF NFL podcast. Gave it a try because I need those nutrients, guys. I need to eat better. Don't have the best diet, but AG1 fills in the gaps in my diet. So I like to kick my day off with some coffee and then my AG1 to get me going. I've been going to a nutritionist over the last few months, and they test you out and everything. And since starting AG1, they're like, oh, things are looking much better. It's almost like the nutrients that we're missing are now there thanks to AG1. So all great athletes, they have one thing in common. They take care of their bodies. A huge part of that starts with optimizing whole body health, and a lot of them also drink AG1. So helped me become a huge fan with every daily serving. I'm setting myself up for success with 75 high-quality ingredients that give me key daily nutrients that support energy, focus, strength, and clarity. Like I said, kick the day off with my coffee, with my AG1, and I'm good to go for the entire day. It's this micro habit that delivers macro benefits. As I said, my nutritionist, she's impressed. Helps just about everybody take great care of their health every single day. So you just mix the 1 small scoop with water, drink it first thing, and you're done. Also costs less than $3 a day. Pretty good, if you ask me. It's a really effective daily habit with high-quality sourced ingredients, a win-win for all of us here on the PFF NFL podcast. So if a comprehensive solution is what you need from your supplement routine, then try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase. You go to drinkag1.com/PFF. That's drinkag1.com/PFF. Go check it out right now.
As a man of your dimensions at a nutritionist, do you have to eat like special food for freaky-sized people? Because, like, if you have a dog, the food is, like, formulated different for the size of dog. You got a really big dog, there's, like, special food for it. I don't know what's in it that's different, but,
It just changes your portion sizes.
No, it's not, because it's the same, like, the bag is the same, right? You have to portion it out. You adjust the portions yourself, but the food itself is different. It's constructed somehow differently for, giant freakish dogs.
No, I don't have differently formulated.
Do you have different food, or you just eat more of it than normal people?
Just eat more usually.
Gotcha.
Yeah. All right, let's get to the Sunday games, the 1 o'clock slate here. New York Giants at the New Orleans Saints. Tommy Cutlets going down to Nolans. Saints are favored by 6 here.
Against Cutlets.
Is there, so this is just fascinating right now, is there a bigger discrepancy in love from the difference between Tommy DeVito and Giants fans and the nation versus Derek Carr and the Saints? Is there a bigger discrepancy?
Everybody loves Cutlets and everybody hates Derek Carr.
That's what I'm saying.
Except the Carrs, the family.
Yes. I would say the Carr family loves Derek Carr more than Italian Americans love Tommy Cutlets or Cutlets in general. Veal, chicken, any of them. I would say the Carr family, they love Derek.
Yes.
More than anyone else loves anything in the world. they scour Twitter, they block you if you say anything bad about Derek. I've
Hey,
been blocked.
I forget who it was, but someone had brought up a game early in Peyton Manning's career where he lost to David Carr's Houston Texans, and he seemed particularly upset by that. It seemed to be,
Peyton did?
Yeah, like Peyton. That clearly irked Peyton Manning, that on his resume somewhere is a loss to David Carr's Houston Texans.
It happens.
Yeah.
It's a tough one. It just came to me. You've got the cultural phenomenon that is Tommy DeVito going up against Derek Carr, who has gotten to a fight with his skill position players, his
Everybody.
center.
Yeah.
He's almost been booed off the field the last 2 weeks. All that said,
And he's been banged up, like beat up,
he's playing hurt.
Like, why? I'm kind of surprised that they haven't sat him down for Jameis for a couple of games.
But all that said, 2 weeks ago, after he was getting booed early, he came back and played pretty well. And last week, it was a really rough start against the Panthers. He came back and they, scored some touchdowns in the second half and actually scored in the red zone.
Do you think the teams allow their sort of position in the hunt, to disproportionately affect those types of decisions? Like, I feel like if the Vikings had 3 fewer wins this season, Jaron Hall would be starting this game. And I also feel like the Saints would have sat Derek Carr for a couple of games if they were randomly, 3 games worse off than they are now. But because they're like in the hunt for the division title, let alone the playoffs, they go, no, we need Derek Carr. He's still our best chance to win. Let's put him out there with his wrecked
because
ribs.
he's hurt or because you think Jameis would be better than him?
Well, either. Certainly because he's hurt.
No, they just paid Derek Carr a ton of money. In recent history, Derek Carr has been a better quarterback.
I'm not saying you
than
go
Jameis
away
Winston.
from him random, like you would go away from him anyway. But like as soon as he's dealing with a rib injury, you'd be like, well, there's no real difference between Jameis and Derek Carr. So let's make the change. Like, let's let him heal. And by the way, he seems to be getting everybody pissed off. So another reason to sit his ass down.
Yeah, all I know is he's played better after getting booed. So if you're in the dome, maybe
Boo him.
let the boos rain down early here, right? Really stick it to him. Cheer cutlets in the dome, right? Maybe you trade for Tommy DeVito at the end of the season.
Is Derek the kind of guy that is motivated by spite like Aaron Rodgers?
I mean, it's worked the last couple of weeks. He started chucking it downfield against Detroit.
I feel like the Cars
Then he
as
got
a
hurt.
family, though, are too sensitive for that to be a thing.
Oh, probably.
Like they don't. I mean, they feel the spite. They just don't. It doesn't.
Now we've
motivate
got Darren Carr, who's the Twitter blocker.
Yeah.
You have David Carr, who's just delusional NFL analyst who thought that Derek Carr was the most valuable player in the world.
He's the hype man.
in 2021.
So you've got the family policeman, which is Derek? No,
Darren.
Darren. That's it. So you got Darren, who's the sort of the bouncer, the cop, and then you've got David, who's the hype man, and then Derek, who's the front man.
I think Derek's perfectly fine though. Like he's, the easiest one out of all of them. Like, because when he gives interviews and everything, like you just tell he's passionate and wants to win and whatever. I don't know, but he does kind of yell at his team too much. Anyway, any football analysis to add to this?
I mean, look, the Saints
Saints by
defense.
6.
The Saints defense is good. So this is not an easy task for Cutlets, who's been feisty more than good. And again, kind of how much of his success has been things like Green Bay's defense being unusually situationally terrible, right? It's like, yeah, he executed the comeback drive. On the other hand, they kind of let him do it.
I mean, I also mentioned when his very first start, it was like, man, it's like Dable and Kafka, like they were hyped up as offensive play callers and offensive geniuses or whatever. They were hyped up for reasons that we didn't see earlier in the year, where they could not make any adjustments on offense. The offensive line was getting whooped, and they weren't doing anything creative to help Daniel Jones. Nothing was working. And all of a sudden, it was like, okay, they're calling a better game, putting defenses on their heels a little bit more. Tommy DeVito, good job by him to execute it, but he's kind of the beneficiary as well. They've also leaned into his running ability. He had, 70, 80 yards the other night, both on design plus scrambles. So they're tapping into that skill set just a little bit as well. And then the general hysteria around it, which has been fun.
Yeah.
Led to some fodder. The Saints should be a better team here, though.
They should.
That's why they're favored by 6. They've just, it's like, again, every time you want to buy into the Saints, it's like, ugh.
Yeah.
disappointing.
The Giants receivers were good against Green Bay. I think that's a big thing. If those guys can consistently make plays for Cutlets, obviously Jalen Hyatt brings the speed, but Wan'Dale Robinson had a great game with a few big plays there. Like if that group can coalesce around DeVito, then between that and his rushing ability, and it's very Josh Dobbs-like, right? Like he's athletic enough to be able to scramble and make plays and keep the chains going, so that he can maybe buy just enough time to make a few passes to keep the thing moving. That rushing ability is important for him. Like he is sneaky athletic.
The one other thing I'll add here, as far as like predicting Tommy DeVito's future, like we don't know what that's going to look like. When a Jake Browning has a breakout game, you're like, okay, he was a very good college quarterback who maybe figured things out. DeVito was this up and down roller coaster ride in college across 2 different schools, and they won some games at Illinois and the whole thing. But like, it's almost like you're expecting that to regress a little bit. You're expecting Brock Purdy to regress, but it's Purdy similar to Browning, where it's like he was a good college quarterback overall. He's a good, like I don't even know if you say that about DeVito. He just kind of, hit a little run here with the Giants.
Yeah.
But you got the hype of the Giants versus the Saints, who I hate picking. So where are you going to go in this one?
Giants.
Yeah.
They're on a 3-game win streak with Cutlets here.
I hate talking about this. It just makes me so hungry. My mom makes great chicken cutlets. I mean, she just cranks them out, and like when they're fresh off the stuff, oh man, they're so good.
And as a man of your dimensions, you got to eat a lot of those.
Oh, dude, I crush chicken cutlets. I asked Kelly to make some for me, but then you get the nutritionist too. You get the nutritionist I was just talking about. I mean, she's not in on the, the fried cutlets.
Oh, dude, you are going to do so much damage to some Vegas buffets when we go to the Super Bowl.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, if we can find a flight that's under $1,000, we can. I can't wait to get out there. Yeah,
we'll use that money on the buffets.
Oh, it's gonna be great. Super Bowl. We should stay the extra day so we can get one extra buffet. We should fly back on Tuesday.
Just splash out and move from the Luxor to the Venetian or something. Go get their buffet.
Yes. New York Jets at the Miami Dolphins. Dolphins favored by 8.5 here. I'm looking forward to this one, man. What do we get from Zach Wilson? Is he still centered? Now, I've gone to the chiropractor before.
Oh God.
I know you're not a chiropractor fan.
Yeah.
But they're like, you get moved around. It's like, oh, this leg's longer than that, and you're out. You get
what?
That's how they get you, right? They're like, oh, this leg's a little bit longer. Let me, you're off center. They're saying you're off center. They're like, oh, now
do you ask for like confirmation on that, or you just take the guy's word for it? Sure, this leg's longer than the other.
I've had some pretty scammy chiropractors.
Yeah.
The guy I go to over here in Cincinnati, though, made my back feel much better. I had some serious back issues a couple summers ago, and he helped me.
Got it.
But I had this one guy this is why the podcast is so long. He had the gun. He had like this gun. He'd shoot you with the gun and this and that. It was a big scam.
The Theragun thing?
It's like a clicker thing. It was weird. It was very weird. He thought he was at like the forefront of all chiropractic work. I don't know. We probably have so many chiropractors that
pushing the boundaries of chiropractic science.
Do not trash chiropractors.
I'm
trying to say is you need to go back. So does Zach Wilson get recentered right now? Because he just played a football game, took some hits. He's probably less centered after getting hit. Does he get recentered this week? Do they have the time to recenter him without the time off?
Well, it sounded like it needed a break for him to be recentered.
So is he only good on 3 weeks rest?
Yes.
Right? So he's got to take 3 weeks off, or can he bounce back? Is he okay with 6 days rest as we go pitchers? 6 days rest.
Right. Did you ever see, there's a video, there's probably a lot of them, but one in particular I've seen of, those videos of chiropractors where they're like slowly, caressing a guy's neck and then, right? And there's a load of those. That's the whole thing, right? There's the video of like construction workers, like contract workers, like caressing a thing of drywall and then being like snapping it in half, and it's just the whole takeoff of the chiropractic thing. It's pretty funny. You go look it up.
So they just go through like all different.
Yeah, and it's just like a whole bunch of guys in like neon vests and whatever, like clutching a 2x4 and then be like,
that's good.
Snapping it over, just like they were a chiropractor.
I mean, just like we've asked for billionaires, we've asked for weathermen or air pilots. If you're a chiropractor, let us know, and then you could trash Sam in the comments.
Do we need feedback from chiropractors?
Not feedback. I just want to know if there's chiropractors that listen. So I know who you're insulting.
Oh.
I want to know how many of our listeners you insult.
I've already done that. Me and Trev had a big thing about it.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Sorry, I missed it. All right, talk about the football, Sam.
Oh, man, that's part of the intro.
That's right.
It's
a consistent part of the show.
You've got Zach Wilson and his recenteredness, and then obviously the other part is you've got the Jets defense going up against Tua and the Miami offense. And injury related, are we getting Tyreek Hill? I mean, he came back into the game with another ankle sprain and another hip drop tackle, by the way. Which, it wasn't even that was atrocious tackling technique. Like, he just kind of launched himself at him, all four limbs splayed, grabbed hold of his shoulder pads, and then fell forward onto his ankles.
They're talking about that tackle today. I mean, that's a whole nother spiel. The NFL's been pushing this tackle technique to prevent head injuries for 10 years. They did a whole youth movement teaching kids how to tackle like this.
The NFL
over 10 years.
The NFL has a tackling problem across the board. Like, every single technique they teach is a recipe for injury.
Well, so Troy Vincent, they're talking about this today, the competition committee or whoever's meeting right now. They're going to ban this thing next year after spending a decade teaching America how to tackle like this. So this is going to be a 15-yard penalty next year. It's going to be insane. You think, scoring's down this year. It's going to go up by 12 points a game per team next year just by nobody's able to tackle.
But they also have this problem where, so you've got that tackle as a problem. You've got the fact that they used to teach, the technique they teach in terms of where you put your head is the exact opposite of where you're supposed to put it in order to avoid concussions. Like, the idea of putting your head across the body so that you get more of your body in the way basically means you get kneed in the head all the time, right? It's literally the opposite place. Rugby teaches cheek to cheek, right? This cheek against this cheek, ass cheek to cheek to stop your head getting run over by a dude's hips or knees, right? The NFL doesn't do that. In fact, they teach the opposite. But now you're in this world where, all right, we're going to outlaw this tackle, we're going to outlaw that tackle. There's 3 or 4 different ways of taking a guy down that are all going to be illegal, and we have no way of actually teaching them the difference because we don't practice enough. So you can't do what you do in other sports and we need to change everybody's tackling technique because you don't have the practice time anymore.
You should be on the competition committee.
100%.
And one other thing. How does Tyreek Hill have what seems to be a season-ending injury every single week?
Yeah.
Every single week. I had made this comment about Mike Evans recently. He's been better. But Mike Evans would always come up limping or something. Tyreek really does this every week, and everybody's like, oh, no, he blew a hamstring. And it's no, he's back in 10
But this was another one that was supposed to be a high ankle injury. They tape him up, and he's like, this really hurts. And then apparently a text from his wife or fiance or whatever it was get the hell back out there. And he runs out and immediately looks like Tyreek Hill again. It's what the hell? Have the last 10 years of high ankle sprains just been people being, too cowardly to just get on the field and play through it?
Soft. The old days, they were soft. Now,
apparently,
the young players are playing through it.
Maybe it's the advances in tape technique that have just allowed the high ankle sprain and now just be a pain threshold thing.
Anyway, last time they played, we saw a pick 6 on a Hail Mary.
Well, we saw the Tim Boyle game, yeah.
Tim Boyle game. The Jets' defense against the Miami offense, it is a great battle. We did see the value of Tyreek Hill when he's not healthy or not on the field.
Yeah.
Things do completely change.
It's different.
I know the Tua people. They're coming off of Reddit for a little bit here to show up and give me some on-off splits for Tua with and without Tyreek Hill. I know the stats are still good this year. They are, but there is a noticeable difference when you don't have Tyreek Hill, because even he gets out there and runs a deep out, and all of a sudden Tua's precision. There is something to. Not only do they get open better, good receivers get open more, they also kind of induce the quarterback to make better throws. It is crazy how it works. I looked this up at one point, the Tom Brady's big-time throw rate thrown to Gronk or Ben Roethlisberger thrown to Antonio Brown. They seem to make better tight window throws too to those guys because of the confidence or whatever it might be. It does change everything when Tua is out there and healthy, and especially against this Jets defense.
I also I can't imagine what the difference in timing is when you go from Tyreek Hill to human.
That's true too. It's
Tyreek Hill
calibration, right?
He runs a 15-yard dig, right? The difference that you have in either when you need to release the ball or where you need to aim that ball when it's Tyreek Hill versus just a normal fast person must be insane.
It's a really good point, right? Because with Tua's quick release, you're literally making him work quicker because he's got to get rid of it quicker because of Tyreek Hill. It is also fascinating that the Chiefs kind of did the opposite. They didn't run a whole lot of timing routes with Tyreek other than from the slot. It was more like run fast down the field, get open, and then Mahomes will throw it behind everybody.
Right.
Anyway, should be a great game. I've highlighted the Jets' coverage in the middle of the field in particular. Love their corners, but the middle of the field defense for the Jets has been outstanding relative to the rest of the league this year. That's where Miami likes to attack. On the other side, I don't know which. Are you buying into Zach Wilson coming off the best game of his career and doing it again?
No, I mean only insofar as Zach Wilson should be better than Tim Boyle was against the Dolphins. That's the extent to my buy-in of Zach Wilson.
So you taking the Jets?
Yes.
I'll also take the Jets.
I hate it, but I'm taking them. It's 8.5 points. A lot of points for a defense.
This is the Dolphins fans were in the comments the other day, and they said last week you said too many points for the Dolphins, and they covered it against Washington.
Yeah.
And then last week we said too many points against the Titans. Titans won it. The Dolphins are also coming off a heartbreaker.
Also, they covered it with 3 minutes to go.
I know.
They lost the game.
So for the third straight week, I'm saying too many points for the Dolphins. I'll
Yeah.
take the Jets, in part because of the injuries. I think the Dolphins will win, though. Houston Texans at the Tennessee Titans. Speaking of Will Levis, Titans are favored by 3 against the Texans. This wouldn't have happened a couple weeks ago. I know the Titans, you got the home road splits. They're in Nashville. They're coming off their first win outside of Nashville in over a year. But Will Levis leading that comeback the other night, DeAndre Hopkins being dominant as he is. Looks like Vegas buying into the Titans being a little better than their record.
I mean, I think this one's more about who's missing for Houston.
Or is it just
right?
Houston's injuries? Yeah.
Like CJ Stroud is still concussed. He didn't practice Wednesday. He might play. He might not. We don't know. But even if he does, he doesn't have any receivers left anymore because, Tank Dell had his broken leg. Nico Collins left that game with an injury that's going to be a few weeks to heal. I mean, he just doesn't have anybody to throw to right now. So even if he plays, and frankly, if I was looking at this from a Texans point of view, I'm not sure I'd be rushing to put him out there. I don't know that they can have much success moving the ball on offense.
I just thought of a funny story. I have to derail the podcast for 1 second.
Perfect.
When you said Tyreek Hill got texted, get back in there.
Yeah.
So when we were in AAA in Fresno, and all the wives and girlfriends or whatever came in for a week, and they were all hanging out together in the outfield. One of my teammates was out there pitching, and his fiance at the time maybe was really hard on him, right? So he gets out there pitching, throws 2 balls. You hear from the crowd in left field, she goes, "Figure it out!" screaming at him from the grassy knoll in left field. And he's looking at her, and then before you know, he starts pumping strikes, and it was great.
It worked.
At the time. It worked. It was just came to mind.
The other thing
if my wife ever did that to me,
Yeah.
we wouldn't be getting married.
Wouldn't go well.
No.
The other thing isn't that illegal, using your phone at halftime or whatever?
I was thinking that.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
I thought it was. I thought you weren't allowed.
Shadur Sanders was
no,
posting
but that's
Instagram
college.
and stuff.
But in the NFL, I thought you were half an hour before the game or whatever. Cell phones get locked in a box and you can't use it until after.
I posted that video of Shannon Sharp on the sideline from 1999 on a cell phone during Monday Night Football. Was it legal back then?
What a cell phone too.
It was an amazing cell phone.
Yeah.
Check out my Twitter account. You got Shannon Sharp on the cell phone
With the big aerial.
Yeah, he was not playing. He was in street clothes.
Right.
So we don't know Texans Titans. I don't know if CJ Stroud's going to play. Obviously, that makes a big difference. But Davis Mills goes from you don't want him as your starter, but he did some cool things as a starter relative to expectations, and he's probably a pretty good backup if he does have to play.
Yeah, if you had receivers.
Yeah, I know.
That's the problem.
I know. They're all hurt.
Yeah.
And Will Anderson also got added to the injury list yesterday. He's I think it was another high ankle sprain. So, he'll probably be ready to go.
High ankles, as far as the eye can see.
Last year was the year of the calf. This is the year of the high ankle sprain.
And the Achilles.
And the Achilles. Basically, it's all lower leg injuries.
Right. Nobody's heard a pec all year.
But I think it's because of the practice time. You cut practice time. These guys are hurting.
I think they need to temper their lower legs.
All I'm saying is everything that the NFL and the NFLPA has done over the last 10 years, everything that they've done to make the game better was oh, this is a good idea. All of the unintended consequences. It's let's create late hits, the headshots and everything. Headshots led to hip drop tackles. We don't want headshots. We want we create hip drop tackles. Now we got to get rid of those. Now we're going to have no tackles.
No tackles.
Right? Just nobody's allowed to tackle anymore. 10 years from now, Patrick Mahomes has thrown for 8,500 yards because 49-year-old Travis Kelce weaves through the defense and they couldn't grab his flags in time.
You would love the arguments going on in rugby right now because they are thinking about banning any tackle above the nipples. Right, so now you you haven't been able to go for the head for a while, right? But you could have gone like shoulder down. Now it's like, no, if it's above the nipple line, that's not cool. So we're shrinking, the window that you can aim for incrementally year by year.
The NFL is going to do that.
Yeah.
Because I heard when they
right, but at the moment in the NFL, it's like it's feet to head. You're cool, right? Rugby is already like this, and it's getting shrunk the longer we go.
Oh man. Anyway,
this show is going to break records. It's going to be our longest ever.
No, we're just going to start picking games. I'm sorry if your team gets neglected. We're just picking games now. Let's go. Texans Titans, make a pick here. By the way, Will Levis is must see TV. Got to watch Will Levis.
He's getting scolded by Vrabel for being a psycho.
He's just dropping his shoulder and laying into again. The NFL is going out of their way to protect quarterbacks. And Will Levis is out there like paying homage to 90s fullbacks.
Can you imagine how upset Tom Brady is watching Will Levis play football?
That's not what he's upset about.
Of course it is. He's like, these people out here not protecting themselves, like risking everything.
He's upset.
He's like, what are you doing?
How are you going to stay?
Trying to run over Jalen Ramsey.
I'm telling you, we're getting into a great area where Levis has some Josh Allen in him, playing style-wise. Sam Howell has some Josh Allen in him. We're just going to get exciting football.
Fun. It's crazy and ill-advised, but it's fun.
Yes.
And this is, Vrabel's not happy with it. Like, he's like, I'm going to have to show him some videos of quarterbacks not getting run the hell over.
They said they were showing him videos of QBs sliding.
Yeah.
That didn't work. So now we're going to show him videos of QBs getting killed, basically. So,
I mean, the running over Ramsey thing was one thing. Trying to tackle the defensive tackle that you just threw a pick to in the end zone, like he'd already scored at this point, was way more egregious. Either way, Levis is fun to watch.
All right. Highest graded game of his career, and a lot of it came in crunch time, throwing the ball down the field and getting DeAndre Hopkins involved. He's got a big-time throw rate of almost 6%. Turnover-worthy play rate's high as well. But, yeah, Levis is going to be – he's going to be entertaining because I think he's got that volatility that could, any given week, put up a ton of points and create a lot of big plays.
I think this is a Houston Oilers throwback game as well, which means Titans win. So it's the Battle of Houston. Who owns the Oilers?
They're trying to stick it to the Texans here?
Yeah, I think so.
We're the real Houston?
We're
the real Oilers?
Somebody in the chat says, they aren't supposed to have phones in jail either. I'm not sure that's quite the same logic, but I appreciate where you went with that.
Should the Texans should also wear Oilers throwbacks? They should go with the blue versus
the white.
They'll
get a cease and desist. Like, didn't that Houston, the Oilers, the Titans, sent a cease and desist to the University of Houston because they're like,
same color.
Yeah, they were running this like homage, color scheme, and they were like, no, that's too close. You can't do it. I see what you're doing there with your no Oilers labeling, but clearly Oilers colors. We own that, not you. Anyway, Titans.
Yeah, I'll take the Titans as well. Throwbacks. If Stroud plays, I might want to flip my pick, but I'll let you know on Sunday. We're taking the Titans to cover the 3.
Yeah.
All right, we're going fast here. Rest 7 more games, whatever it is. Chicago Bears at the Cleveland Browns. Browns favored by 3. Browns are down their top 3 offensive tackles now.
Yep.
Already out. Jack Conklin, Jedrick Wills, and DeJuan Jones all out. We also have Obo Okoronkwo, torn pec. I think he's out for the season.
Right after me saying no one had torn a pec.
You're right.
Somebody else went down with a pec as well.
Maybe all
it
the
wasn't
injuries.
true when I said it.
It's just all the injuries.
Yeah.
It's all the same. Meanwhile, the Bears defense playing great. Every now and again, coming out of a 2.5-hour show, I'm like, man, I really left a lot of the cutting board there. I did forget to mention how great Montez Sweat played on Sunday against the Lions. Beat Taylor Decker for a couple pressures, including a sack. He's been playing great. A lot of people are using the without cutoff since Montez Sweat showed up. The Bears defense is great. I definitely think that's noisy and not necessarily predictive of the future. However, Sweat has been playing pretty well for the Bears here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Keep an eye on, especially against whoever's going to be playing tackle now for the Browns.
Whoever. It's Jerron Christian, right, at left tackle, and not Hubbard. Is it Hubbard?
Hudson.
Hudson, that's it. All
James
right. I knew it
Hudson.
was yeah. So that's not great. With Joe Flacco at quarterback. Yeah, I mean, it does feel like a potential weakness. That being said, like the Bears, okay, Montez Sweat is a good player, but it's still, if you had to pick a team to play two backup tackles against, they'd be one of your top 5, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Cleveland's defense is still nasty even without Okoronkwo. Myles Garrett looks back to his best. Again, what the hell is with people this year? It's like massive season-long crippling injuries derail them for like a week, and then they're back to being Defensive Player of the Year. Like, we've had Trey Hendrickson, Myles Garrett, Max Crosby all have like what looks like a disastrous injury, and it made them play worse, but not bad, just like not great for a week. And then the next week, it's like, no, I'm good now. Defensive Player of the Year again.
We've got incredible recovery drugs. I don't know. I'm posing the question. I'm just saying a lot of people are recovering a lot quicker, it seems.
Random testing, maybe.
Yeah. Now you're suggesting.
Well, I mean,
you're suggesting
the random
HGH or something.
The random testing that clearly isn't random, where a guy has a good game, they get a letter saying, hey, you've been selected for the random test.
That's anecdotal.
I'm just saying maybe the random testing might want to focus on the players that are like good to go after 2 weeks after hearing a pop in a shoulder or a knee or a bicep or whatever.
The testing thing is all anecdotal. That's people complaining. Anyway, we talked a lot about Justin Fields yesterday to the dismay of some people, but Justin Fields, man, he's one of the stories of the NFL these last 4 games, whatever he looks like and leading into that Bears decision, and he's coming off a good game against the Lions. He's thrown the ball pretty well. He's been dynamic as a runner, had the 11, 12-yard touchdown run the other day against a Browns defense that plays a lot of man, that does have a lot of, creates a lot of tight window throws for quarterbacks. Might see Fields having to run the ball a lot more, puts a little more pressure on the Browns front 4, play contain rather than trying to move him off his spot.
I mean, this is also a way better defense than he's faced in a while, so that will make it interesting. But they play a lot of man coverage, which doesn't necessarily lend itself to stopping a quarterback that is looking to scramble a lot of the time. So it's a bit of a change for the Cleveland defense. They have been vulnerable to those kind of second reaction plays this season, whether it's designed as misdirection, part of the offense, reverses, that kind of thing, or whether it's simply a quarterback scrambling in a place he's not supposed to be going. So that dynamic is pretty interesting. And then it's like, how successful can Flacco be attacking a defense that is much more run-of-the-mill vanilla, but he doesn't have any tackles.
Do you think Joe Flacco can keep it up? Last time we saw him have a good 2-week stretch, I think with the Jets earlier in the year, once he hit week 3, it was like, he came back down to earth. I mean, he's grading at 66 over the last couple weeks. Even like the raw stats aren't great, but he's had 5 touchdowns in 2 weeks. Like I said the other day, a lot of those were bad defense.
Yeah,
as well.
I mean, look, I think the thing for Flacco is, can he have a game that doesn't have a back-breaking turnover / mistake? He had one of last week. He avoided a ridiculous throw to a safety randomly the week before he didn't, right? I honestly think that's kind of what Joe Flacco's games come down to. He'll move the ball. He'll have success. He'll put up some numbers, but can he avoid that ridiculous turnover that's going to put them in a hole and give a possession away? Because that might be the difference in this type of game between winning and losing.
All right, Cleveland favored by 3 at home. I have not been able to get you the weather there.
Oh, the weather? Give me 1 second. The weather for this game, according to PFF Green Line, 45 degrees, overcast, so 8/8 cloud cover, and that's it.
I'm disappointed in the weather this week. We have games in Cleveland, in Green Bay, and in Buffalo, and it's all just 40s and clear.
Why is that disappointing?
It's December. I want some weather.
I only want snow. I don't.
December games are won on the ground. I want to wake up.
I don't want rain.
Make snow angels on the ground because that's how you win December games.
I don't want rain. Rain stinks. Wind stinks. I just want snow.
There should have been snow.
Okay.
In one of these games.
Well,
in
maybe
Cleveland,
there will be.
Buffalo, or Green Bay. There's no snow.
There's cloud cover in all of them. Maybe the cloud cover will
I like a good gloomy game in December. That's fine. I want some snow. So you're taking Cleveland to cover the 3. I'll take Chicago, man. They're going to have a tough time containing Justin Fields.
All right.
I'll take the Bears to cover the 3. Falcons at the Panthers. Falcons favored by 3 here. Falcons are 6-7, tied with the Bucs and the Saints in the NFC South. And, of course, the Panthers, they have 1 win, and they're destined to give the Bears the number 1 overall pick. Rematch from week 1. It was Bryce Young's debut. That is when he hit Jesse Bates for a couple interceptions over the middle of the field. We're going to see more of that in this game in Carolina.
Yeah. Can Jesse Bates bait him into more interceptions, and or has Bryce Young learned anything from the first time it happened? That will definitely be something worth monitoring.
Just a little recap here. So last week, from Atlanta's perspective, Drake London was outstanding. I don't know if we have given him enough credit for the game that he had, but it keeps getting us back into this position. If they can get more consistent quarterback play, they have all the pieces to make a run here. Bryce Young is closing in on, it's one of the worst rookie seasons we've seen from a grading standpoint, 49.1.
Really is.
But at the same time, it's felt uncomfortable, right? It's felt like we can't get any passes completed down the field. Nothing's good. But Desmond Ridder, his grade's only a little bit better than Bryce Young this year. And I think it shows you don't have that same feeling from Ridder, other than he does make the disastrous mistake at the wrong time. But even Ritter's able to average almost 2 yards per attempt more than Bryce Young, because he's got a Drake London to throw it up to, or he has a Kyle Pitts to make a big play here and there. And I think that's, clearly the difference in the game is the Falcons have a much better supporting cast on offense than the Panthers.
Yeah, they do. This is a weather game for you. No, it's rain.
In Carolina? You get some rain.
Moderate rain.
Yeah,
that doesn't feel like a way of improving Bryce Young's season.
Bryce doesn't need that in his life.
And I feel like if that's going to help one of these teams, it's probably helping the Falcons, not just because Bryce Young will be worse than already bad, but because that's a team designed to run the ball anyway. Like, if you're going to pivot towards that kind of game plan for the weather, this is what you do anyway.
All right. We gave everybody something to watch for in this game. Where are you going to go?
Atlanta. I feel like this
Atlanta covering the 3 in Carolina?
Yeah. It's going to be miserable.
I'll take it as well. I'll take the Falcons. All right, the other 1 o'clock game, Kansas City Chiefs at the New England Patriots. This was originally a Monday Night Football game. I believe this is the first ever Monday Night Football game flexed out of Monday Night Football.
And what a game to flex out.
Yeah. I mean, all the jokes where the Patriots are so bad that they flexed Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs out of primetime.
Right.
Yeah, but Mahomes versus Belichick, it's still somewhat intriguing there. The Chiefs are favored by 8.5 here in New England. Patriots coming off of their win against the Steelers. There's at least something to watch here. Kansas City's offense against the Patriots' defense. First time Belichick has gone up against Mahomes without Tyreek Hill. Remember, he used to always have a special game plan for Tyreek Hill. I assume that'll be allotted for Travis Kelce in this game. And so some intrigue there, and then seeing if, can Bailey Zappi, coming off a 3-touchdown game, can he put something together against a very good Chiefs defense? Yeah,
flex Patrick Mahomes, the Kansas City Chiefs, and potentially Taylor Swift out of Monday Night Football.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
That might be the last thing. Like, a lot of people are like, that's the last straw for Robert Kraft.
You think this is what it was?
You got us flexed out of prime time here. We gotta change everything.
ESPN said no thanks.
Yeah.
Therefore, your time has come.
It's an embarrassment. We're out of here.
It's miserable.
Dynasty's over.
The dynasty's over. This was the
straight
moment.
year.
This is going to be a book written. This was the moment that Belichick's time was done.
As Taylor Swift was flexed out.
When ESPN said no thanks.
Chiefs are at 8-5 here. I mean, the Patriots are only 5 games behind them.
5 games, huh?
It's getting closer. Chiefs are 8-5. They got the 1-game lead in the AFC West. However, the rest of the Chiefs' schedule involves games like this: Patriots and Zappi, Raiders and Aiden O'Connell, Bengals and Jake Browning, Chargers and Easton Stick. Even though the Chiefs are 2 games behind the Ravens for the number 1 seed, I still think that number 1 seed is in play for Kansas City, because they could very easily win out here, go 12-5.
It is, but equally, this whole thing, like this season, the theme almost across the board has been nobody's hit on all cylinders, with I think the exception of the 49ers. Like, even Dallas still has to work against the fact they got stomped by the 49ers. But like, the Chiefs haven't been the Chiefs, particularly on offense. The Bills haven't been the Bills. The Bengals weren't the Bengals. Now they've been dealing with quarterback injuries. Like, all these teams that we thought would be elite, true contenders haven't been. And for the Eagles and the Chiefs, the two Super Bowl teams, because we just saw them in the biggest game and one of them winning it, you're like, well, they're going to get there eventually, and they figured it out before. They'll figure it out again. I mean, we're running out of time, right? We've got 4 games left. It's time to figure it out. Otherwise, what are we doing here? So the whole Kadarius Toney thing, right, lining up off sides, it's kind of distracted from the fact that, again, it didn't happen. And then it didn't happen, and then it was highlighted by one guy making a silly play and lining up offside. But like, are we ever going to see this team figure it out? And Travis Kelce's on his podcast, the New Heights thing, saying, we have the personnel. The guys here are good enough to win a championship, and all these mistakes are self-inflicted, and we can fix this. I kind of agree. I think they can, but they're running out of time to actually do it. And this is another game where, yeah, the Patriots might be a bit of a laughing stock this season. They still do have a good defense, though. So
that side of the ball could be competitive, for sure. And again, I always view this when there's 8-9 point spreads. It's like, all right, how could you keep this close? The Chiefs' defense has not been great from a run game. They haven't been great stopping the run. They've been excellent from a pass game perspective, keeping QBs off balance, other than maybe Jordan Love a couple weeks ago. But if New England gets into that grinded out run game where Zeke's getting his 3, 4, 5 yards, playing good defense, you might be able to get a close game here. The Chiefs they've only scored more than 21 points in 5 games this year out of 13. And so, if you look at, a lot of people are talking about the Chiefs and like the personnel moves to put this group of receivers out there. It's literally Rashee Rice for Juju Smith-Schuster. That's the difference in personnel moves last year to this year. But last year, the receivers played better, and Mahomes played better, and they called better. Like, everything was better last year across Kansas City. They hit a couple little, bumps in the road here and there, but overall, it was a pretty dominant season for the Chiefs from start to finish. And that carried into the playoffs. So that's the concern here, is they haven't figured it out offensively. I think Mahomes has certainly played better than the stats have showed. This is the first time in his career I think that's the truth, right? The first time in Mahomes' career, because again, there was a game against New England a few years ago where he had like a 45 grade and a passer rating of 110 because he had tap passes and yards after the catch. And it's the first time in Mahomes' career I think he's playing better than the stats. It used to be the other way around. And I think that all can start catching up to the Chiefs, where the offense is just not producing. Or maybe to that point, it's like maybe they just start catching the ball a little bit better. I think the drops are still a little overrated. It's the down to down. It's not just one drop here and there. It's the down to down. It's just so inconsistent from a pass game perspective for the Chiefs.
But I think things like those, you've always sort of been of the opinion of things like drop passes are not a big deal. You can overcome those. The getting open part is more important. I think generally that's been true. But because of this current trend of defenses fighting back and offense becoming less efficient, any negative is becoming a bigger thing. Yeah. So I think taking a sack is a bigger problem than it used to be. Getting a holding penalty is a bigger problem than it used to be. Dropping a football is a bigger problem than it used to be, because all these negatives are harder to overcome in the next 2 downs because we're already struggling to complete these passes. So I think we're in this world now where any inefficiency within your offense, and right now the Chiefs are dealing with them everywhere, right? You've got penalties all over the place from lining up wrong, or Jawan Taylor getting pinged for everything he's doing. You've got people dropping the football. You've got fumbles from receivers. Like, all of these things are happening, and they can't overcome them anymore the way they used to be able to. Like, Mahomes is not able to do that on his own, or just Mahomes and Kelce, and eradicate all those negatives. So either they need to stop making that volume of negative plays, or something fundamental needs to change about how explosive they can be.
I didn't look it up. I apologize. But Mahomes' grade against the Patriots has not been great through the years from what I remember. They haven't played in a couple of years. But the grade itself wasn't great, but the production was good.
Right.
If that continues, again, they don't have the playmakers to overcome that. So there is a world where Belichick and New England have some success, and maybe they could keep this into a little bit closer game. So 8.5 here for the Chiefs in New England on the road. Another game where there's no weather, man. It's in the 40s, and it's clear, and it's fun. Normal football weather.
It's overcast.
It'll be overcast.
That's 8/8.
It's a dreary December Sunday afternoon.
It's not 0/8. It's 8/8 cloudy.
8/8 cloudy. Where are you going with this one? Chiefs by 8.5 in New England.
That's a lot of points for an offense struggling as much as they are. I do unfortunately think that Bailey Zappi will come down to earth and have some ugly turnovers, at which point that might be enough to cover it. So let's go with the Chiefs.
Yeah, I'll take the Chiefs. I think that side of the ball, Zappi passing game against Spags, could be trouble for the Patriots. Let's go Washington Commanders at the Los Angeles Rams. Rams favored by 6.5 here. Rams are 6-7, right on the verge of playoff positioning. Where are they ranked exactly here? The Rams are currently the number 8 seed at 6-7, tied with the Packers. I won't say it again. Tied with the Packers as well as the Seahawks, Falcons, and Saints, all at 6-7.
Mm-hmm.
But the Rams are second in the hierarchy of the 5, 6, and 7 teams in the NFC.
Got it. Washington's defense has given up an absurd number of big plays. Like, they're the one team in the NFL where it's actually possible to have explosive plays against, apparently.
Yeah.
And look, Stafford has been dealing all season long. Their receivers are good. They can make those explosive plays. Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua. So I kind of feel like this should be a pretty good game for the Rams offense. And Washington no longer has the edge rushers to, really attack that offensive line that can be a weakness.
Yeah, we're talking fun Stafford. We're talking, I think, a healthier Cooper Kupp over the last few weeks, looking better. Puka Nacua making his big plays. I think there should be some big plays to be made here with the Commanders and the Rams. We usually spend our Commanders time talking about Sam Howell. I think he's come back down to earth a little bit in recent weeks. And look, it'll be a new regime there in Washington. They'll have some decisions to make around Sam Howell. I think he's still been intriguing. But where do you stand now as we get into the last 4 games of the season here with Sam Howell?
On Howell? Yeah, I mean, he hasn't played as well recently as he was playing earlier in the season. I still think it's reasonably encouraging that I think the sack thing is better than it used to be. Like, that part of his game has stayed relatively constant in terms of better than it was. He's not taking 9 sacks a game. He's not taking 6 sacks a game. He's taking 3 or 4, which is still not good, but it's better. And I think that is still his biggest weakness or his biggest weak area. But the big plays have dried up. Like, earlier in the season, he was leading the league in big-time throws. He went 2 games without any and had 1 against the Dolphins. That needs to stay. Like, he needs to have those in his game for Sam Howell to be intriguing. Otherwise, he's just a quarterback with weaknesses that isn't making big plays. Like, the whole selling point on Sam Howell is, yeah, there's going to be some bad in there, but he's going to sling the ball around the place. He's going to make a bunch of big-time throws. He can offset, a sack there that he shouldn't have taken, or a turnover-worthy play that shouldn't be there, with a couple of bombs and flip the field and yada yada. Right? It's like a poor man's version of Josh Allen. But if the big plays aren't there, then you're just a not great quarterback.
2 more quick things to highlight here. Kobe Turner for the Rams, now the second highest graded defensive player on the Rams behind Aaron Donald. So the rookie defensive tackle, drafted in the 3rd round, 90th overall by the Rams. Both of us liked him a lot coming out of college. He's on a bit of a stretch here, grading at 78 or better as a pass rusher. So keep an eye on Kobe Turner as he develops here in the second half of the year. And just the overall job that Sean McVay has done with the Rams, their run game. Kyron Williams, we already said on our Prize Picks lineup, we got him going more on his rushing total. They've done some really good stuff. They've been creative. I think it's been a fun coaching effort, I think, by the Rams and McVay in a season where, again, coming in, it was like they've got 3 or 4 established players and that's it. And they've been extremely competitive. So they had a big chance here to get to 7-7, get back to 500, sneak back into the playoff picture. Where are you going with this one? Rams favored by 6.5.
Rams. I think that they can make enough explosive plays to actually win this game relatively comfortably.
Okay. I got Washington because of the points. I'll take them, within 6.5. I like the Rams to win, but could be, I think this could end up becoming a high-scoring game here. Only 2 games left. I think we're making good pace. We got 7 minutes left, and one of them is the 49ers and the Cardinals.
Yeah.
Niners favored by 12.5. My question to you, because the Niners have just beaten the best teams in the league by 1 million.
Yeah.
Why are they only favored by 12.5 here?
I saw that in your notes. Only 12.5, question mark.
That's my note for this game.
Are you forgetting the last time these 2 teams played?
Yes.
Ah, okay. Well, that would explain it.
They had Josh Dobbs.
They did.
I didn't forget. Josh
You're telling
Dobbs
me they downgraded a quarterback by getting Kyler Murray?
Josh Dobbs had one of those games. He had one of those awesome Dobbs games, or like he made some big plays.
Yeah,
I recall.
they also covered way more than 12.5 in that game. By the way, it was just for a long time they didn't.
Yeah, it was close. But yeah, the Niners, they're cooking. Now, I mean, you could say, hey, the Niners they played a division game. It was multiple games against the Seahawks. It was the Eagles. There was all these huge games. That there'll be a letdown here.
No, I mean, I think you're right. Like that offense looks unstoppable when everybody's healthy. It genuinely does. We just talked about how hard it is for everybody to create explosive plays. Well, they're creating explosive plays everywhere at all levels of the defense with any type of pass. It's insane. And I think that trend that we talked about earlier in the season is still true. Brock Purdy's biggest strength is the offensive scheme's biggest weakness. So when the offense runs out is when Brock Purdy steps up and creates an ad-lib play, or extends the play and finds Brandon Ayuk down the sideline for a big play. Like, that's not one where Shanahan's system is making it happen. That's actually one where Shanahan's system essentially cramped out, right? Whatever we drew up on to go to number one didn't work. And Brock Purdy, like, normally that's when the system would go bad, right? Suddenly Jimmy G or Nick Mullins or CJ Beathard is under pressure and he makes a mistake, or he just eats the ball, gets sacked, or it's an incomplete pass because he had nowhere to go. And you're like, there's the problem with Shanahan. Now that's when Purdy steps in and goes, I'm good. I can buy time for a little bit and find Brandon Ayuk down the field, and we still have an explosive. So that's what makes this whole thing so freaking unstoppable right now, is that it's good everywhere now. And Arizona isn't. So they should put out a lot of points.
Yeah, in the Brock Purdy MVP discussion, which we're not going to dive into, you could make the case. I mean, again, both things are true. There's nuanced take here. Here's one other angle on it. We saw Jimmy Garoppolo have a lot of success in this offense. But if you said that Brock Purdy is now this difference between Jimmy Garoppolo and where they are right now, and you give Purdy credit for the delta there, right, which is out of structure plays, under pressure plays. Purdy also quietly has like a 90 rushing grade. So we're only going to grade the plays where a guy's running the ball, and when he runs, he's picking up first downs. Like, when he chooses to run, he's been efficient with it as well, or QB sneaks or whatever it might be. All of those little things are adding up to the ridiculous production that we're seeing from Purdy. I mean, some of the stats are pretty funny. Did you know he has 7 fewer pass attempts than Joe Burrow this year?
No.
He has 18 fewer pass attempts than Lamar Jackson.
I saw
this season. And he has 1,200 more yards than Burrow and 600 more yards than Lamar Jackson. Wow. Because he's averaging almost 10 yards per. He's 9.9 yards per attempt.
That's crazy.
So if they were voting on MVP, I do actually think he would win today, because voters are going to just look at the stats and he's first in everything. Whether it's all him or not, doesn't matter.
Right.
I think he would win today.
I will thank you to place those voters in a higher level of respect.
How many are there? 50 voters?
I think so.
Still?
Yeah.
So there's like 49 voters who I think would look at the stats and check the box.
Am I the one that doesn't, or is that somebody else?
You would deep dive into it.
So you see the nerds, they love these quadrant graphs, right? Where they put everything on a quadrant, and it's like, here's one random thing against another random thing, and like, look at the distribution. Sometimes I only do it with pressure, just because I thought that was a good one.
It's a good one.
But anyway, the one I saw that I thought was pretty interesting recently for Brock Purdy in particular was it was EPA per play on quick passes. I forget what the time was, but like under 2 seconds or whatever. And then it was EPA per play on passes that were like long developing, long into the play clock passes. And Brock Purdy was in the Mahomes area, off by itself, like way off of the best thing, where he was elite at both of them. And I think that's a visual representation of the argument I made before, which is Shanahan is responsible for one of those axes being really high, generally, and Purdy is responsible for the other one of them being really high. And when you put the two of them together, he's over there and nobody else is anywhere near him. Like, that's what the 49ers offense is right now.
Yeah. And look, sometimes we lose perspective because we're just trying to like isolate what's the performance that we're seeing, and let's put some context around it. And maybe I've been guilty of some of that with Purdy. Like, here's the thing we've seen, here's what it means. The bigger picture of a late round pick still being early in his career and being this effective and comfortable in the pocket and decisive with the ball is really impressive by Brock Purdy.
Yeah.
So and by the way, he's creeping up in our rankings.
Right.
Is he up to 7th or 8th now?
Yeah.
And if you just we're not biased in any way. right? Like when we weren't giving Purdy as much, when he was grading at 73 with ridiculous stats, we would say that's more scheme driven. As the grade goes up and the production goes with it, we say that's more QB driven, and that's what he's been doing recently. He deserves that credit.
He's been getting consistently better, which I think you can probably. I mean, number one, this is year 2, right? He's young,
Yeah.
So that's expected. Number 2, remember the dude, like his elbow fell off at the end of last season. He had in training camp he couldn't throw the ball properly. They were like, we have to put him on a pitch count because he can't throw yet. Like so I don't know how long a UCL injury takes to come back from of that magnitude. Where in the training camp you're definitely not 100%, but it's entirely conceivable like that this is part of his recovery arc as well, that he's just getting healthier now and is getting better because of it. But either way, like his season is getting better the deeper it goes, which forget MVP is terrifying for every other team in the NFL. They already look like the best team in the league and their quarterback is getting better.
All right, man. Niners favored by 12.5 here at Arizona. Where are you going?
Yeah, they're going to cover.
I'll take the Niners as well, as I said. I think that's it. Let us know in the chat if we've missed any games. I'm pretty sure this is it. 16 of 16 here. Monday Night Football got flexed in. Philadelphia Eagles at the Seattle Seahawks. Eagles favored by 4. Philly's coming off of 2 straight losses. And I know there's been a lot of teams in the middle of these huge stretches, but Seattle and Philly have both been in these very difficult stretches of games against a lot of the same teams. And now they get to play each other.
Is this the AWS supercomputer devising schedules that just like there's going to be a stretch for every team where it's like brutal run? Because that's where the money is. We can sell that as a story.
I don't know. I told you
haven't even considered that, you guys, with your like whatever you were doing before that. But now the supercomputer is creating narratives.
I told you last year, I feel like the supercomputer set it up so it was good on good and bad on bad early,
right?
So that all the records were close.
But now they've decided actually that the real money here is creating these in-season narratives of awful schedule for a
They've
run.
basically set up the NBA in-season tournament without saying it.
Right.
It's like, all right, Eagles, you're going to play 5 of the 7 best teams in the league in 5 straight weeks. Go get them. And Seattle had to do the same exact thing.
Yep.
The Eagles sitting there at 10-3. They still have a chance at that number 1 seed, of course, or a 2 seed in the NFC East. And Seattle right now, one of the 5 6-7 teams. And as we kind of predicted, they were 6-4, right? 6-4, and now they're 6-7 because they've run into the stretch of playing the Niners and the Cowboys and all the good teams. And it continues. Can they compete against the Eagles here at home?
Light rain.
That's
light rain,
which is really clear.
Right, for Seattle.
Light rain is clear.
It's like a nice summer day.
Yes. You're familiar with that in the British Isles.
Yeah. There's a lot of rain there.
Yeah.
That's why everything's green.
That's why you're so cranky and miserable.
That too. So, 2 things in this game. Number 1, this is the first game in a while the Eagles have more rest than the other team. They went on a run of like 3 or 4 games straight where they were out there like a day less than everybody else, or like a time difference less. Number 2, this is kind of like in coming from the opposite direction, but this is the same game as Dallas had against Seattle a few weeks ago, where it's like a stepping stone between where they were trying to get, where they were and where they were trying to get to. Like, we've only beaten bad teams and lost against good teams. And now Seattle is this team in the middle somewhere. And that was a close game, and Dallas was able to overcome that. I think that was a legitimate stepping stone on the way to beating Philadelphia. And now genuinely being able to sit there and say we're the second best team in the NFL, or at least the NFC. Now you've got Philadelphia, who were, or at least maybe thought themselves, the number 1 team in the NFC and maybe NFL. And now they've lost a couple of games, including against Dallas, and now they have to like reverse or halt the skid against this middle road team like Seattle and say, no, we can't. Losing to Dallas, okay, we can, they're good pass rush, great team at home, blah, blah, blah. If we lose against Seattle as well in the course of this, now we're in trouble. So I think it's this fascinating like reverse game from the one we had a few weeks ago with the Seahawks and the Cowboys.
And I thought the Seahawks-Cowboys game, because this is the stretch Seattle's had. They lost to the Rams in a tough one, but then they lost by multiple scores against the 49ers, were competitive against the Cowboys. I thought that was actually encouraging that they hung with the Cowboys, and the offense came to life
Right.
against
Well,
Dallas.
this would be the first game of the losing skid that doesn't just make sense in terms of you ran up against an amazing team. You know, like you lose to the 49ers. Okay, everybody is when they're healthy. You lose to Dallas, elite pass rush, and maybe they are actually that good. Now you lose to Seattle, even if it's on the road. It's like, I mean, we know they're not that good. Like, this is now a bigger problem than it was.
Geno Smith questionable right now. Don't know what his status is going to be. Of course, Drew Lock had to play last week on a late groin injury for Geno Smith. Devin Witherspoon has a hip pointer, Sam.
You don't see a lot of hip pointers these days.
I'm highlighting this because that was the most common injury in Madden 95. And I used to think as a youngster that everybody in the NFL always got hip pointers because that's what Madden taught me back in the mid-90s. I haven't seen a hip pointer in a while, and I just wanted to highlight that's what Devin Witherspoon's dealing with. He's questionable. It's
feel
not
like
bruised ribs per Pete Carroll.
Yeah, it does feel like you used to get a lot more hip pointers.
Used to get more hip pointers, but I think they've done great things with hip pointers in recent years.
Which is especially unusual because you used to get them when they wore those specific hip pads. Like they actually had a hip pad, I think, specifically to prevent a hip pointer. And now you don't see a hip pointer pad, and yet hip pointers have disappeared.
Look, I mean, if you learn nothing else from 2.5 hours of PFF NFL podcast, you'll learn that it's the year of we've been cutting down. We've made great strides on handling high ankle sprains and hip pointers.
No, the thing to learn from it, the takeaway, the moral of the story is those stupid giant hip pads that they used to make you wear were pointless, and the fact that I never actually wore them because they were so annoying.
You were correct.
I'm vindicated for never wearing them. I never suffered a hip pointer, and apparently neither does any other NFL player without those pads.
We got to figure out if Devin Witherspoon's hiding some pads in there, and that's why he has one. Anyway, keep an eye on that. So can the Eagles bounce back here, and can the Seahawks, the poor Seahawks, have to try to salvage their season?
Poor Seahawks.
I mean, so if the Eagles get through this, what do they have? They have 2 games against the Giants. I lost track, but they have an easier schedule. They already played the Commanders. Where are we here?
They have Giants, Cardinals, Giants.
That's what it is. Giants, Cardinals, Giants. If the Eagles get past Seattle, theoretically they should win their last 3 games.
Right.
And put all the pressure back on Dallas to win out, they have the Bills, the Lions. They have a tougher schedule. Like, as bad as it feels for the Eagles coming off 2 losses, I think they control their status as a potential number 1 seed because they would still have to leapfrog the Niners.
Right. But it's also, I think, why this game is quite important because you're probably not going to get anything meaningful from those next 3 games. So even if they lose this game, they'll win the next 3, and you'll be like, oh, it's back on track. But it might not be. They might just play 3 bad teams. This is the one where it's actually this is a real opponent. So if you lose this game, now you don't get another real opponent until the playoffs, where it might be too late to find out if you need to fix something. Like, winning this game is actually, I think, fairly important for them to say, no, we're still good. We just ran up against 2 other very good teams.
It'll be interesting to see if the Eagles get their. If Witherspoon's banged up, I think is Tariq Woolen banged up too? No, he seems fine. I don't know. I think the Eagles will have some opportunities to make some big plays in the pass game. Jamal Adams has taken a lot of heat in Seattle because I had to answer some questions on Seattle radio yesterday. I'm like, well, he plays close to the line of scrimmage, which is like target on your back when you're facing Shanahan and the Niners.
Yeah.
So that's how they're isolating Deebo Samuel on him. But yeah, he has not been great. Back 7 for Seattle outside of Devin Witherspoon, basically a big question mark. So
I think
the Eagles will have some big plays to be had there.
Yeah. I think the purpose of Jamal Adams has kind of gone away in recent years. Like he started off as this, not even jack of all trades, but like a guy that could play anywhere within that Jets defense, right? Be deep free safety, be at the line of scrimmage, cover anything you needed him to, and then obviously they traded for him for a couple of first-round picks, and injuries have been a big problem, but he's just not – he doesn't have a spot anymore in a defense. Like, he's basically playing linebacker, but he isn't a good linebacker. Yeah. So it's like, well, what is this?
All right, man, Eagles favored by 4 in Seattle here. Not sure on Geno Smith or Drew Lock. By the way, Drew Lock had 4 turnover-worthy plays last week against the Niners. So, something to keep an eye on there.
Yeah, I mean, I can't. If Geno Smith plays, I think it's a very interesting game. If Drew Lock plays, as much as Drew Lock hasn't been horrendous, I feel like it's a fairly comfortable Philadelphia win. Either way, I think the Eagles will sneak it and cover.
So you don't want to do without.
No, I think either way they're going to win. It's just
home
it's
dogs
closer.
with Geno Smith potentially.
Yeah, That I think at least makes it very close. But I think either way, Philadelphia wins and covers.
All right, I'll take the Eagles as well to cover this. I'll give a season update someday, but last week, just so you know.
Did we get our ass kicked by your child again?
Nope.
Oh.
You and I each had 9 wins, and Harry had 4.
Perfect.
I did not give him he did not get his pick for the Patriots Steelers in time. He claims he would have taken New England. I'm not going to give him. No. He's got a sheet that he writes. He's giving himself credit for the Patriots. No. I refuse to. So so that's a null.
There are rules to this.
Yes.
You got to learn how the grown-up world works.
He should have called me
right
from Disneyland with his pick.
Yeah.
And he didn't.
That's on him.
On him. He knows Thursday Night Football happens every week.
Yeah.
So 9 for Sam, 9 for Steve, 4 for Harry. Eat that, 8-year-old. What is he? 8 or 7? He's 8.
Tell me, he's your child.
Lost track for a minute.
I'm just saying there are rules to this. This is the way the grown-up world works. You're going to have to suffer the consequences.
Yes.
Just as my child is presumably going to have to learn that in the spelling bee tomorrow.
Oh, good luck with that.
Yeah.
Can you spell the words that she has to?
No, certainly not Popocatépetl.
Is she good at it? What is it? What word?
Popocatépetl?
Oh.
It's a mountain.
Perpendicularity?
That too.
That's easy.
I have to think about that word every time I say it because nobody's ever said it out loud before.
It rolls off the tongue.
Perpendicular makes sense. Perpendicularity only exists because people have decided it needs to have like a noun state.
You can add larity to any word.
That's what I mean. Yeah. But that's why the word exists. It's because somebody has just decided that part, like it needs to have that noun state. Like perpendicular, people say it's part of, it describes something. Perpendicularity? No. That you've just invented that. It's not a word that people use. It's fake. It's a fake word.
Well, you better, as long as you could spell it tomorrow, or at least Scout can.
Along with Popocatépetl.
That's it. I'm going to stop hitting the table. We're out of here. You can review Thursday Night Football tomorrow. Enjoy that. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. I'll see you again on Monday reviewing all.
I'm not here tomorrow. It's Brad and Trev.
It's Brad and Trevor tomorrow.
Yep.
Well, they'll be great tomorrow. Tune in tomorrow. And Sam and I will be back Monday morning reviewing all the Week 15 NFL action.